Where are my earbuds? Where are my earbuds? Because we don't need no echo. Oh, you're there. Peekaboo. Do you see me? Because I see you. Hello, hello. Oh, it's been so long. Did you miss me? We chilling today, though. Just taking my hair out today. Okay. This does feel kind of weird, though, because I'm used to going live on Twitch. But we're going to roll with it. It is what it is. And we're going to watch some videos. I usually watch YouTube stuff. So we're going to watch videos while I take my hair out. I've already started. This is what we got so far. This is what we're doing today. And it's going to be super awesome, okay? Don't let anybody tell you different. I think I might need to turn this down. Well, it depends. Let's see.
The Star Wars blasters, lightsabers, vehicles, all that stuff is gone. Fortnite unvaulted the Sentinel Pump shotgun, the Outlaw shotgun, the Twin-Fire auto shotgun, the Fury AR, the Precision SMG.
That Twin-Fire auto shotgun is trash. Let's be honest.
2 SMGs from previous Chapter 6, 3 shotguns, and then the Fury AR as well. And then we also got several new weapons. We have the Spire rifle, which is a pretty accurate LMG with a low fire rate. And if you tap fire this, you can get pretty much constant first shot accuracy. The Hyper Burst pistol, which is a 3-round burst pistol with a very fast fire rate. And then the Deadeye DMR, which is, kind of your run-of-the-mill DMR. It didn't really feel that, special or exciting to use this, but it's a DMR style weapon. And then we also got several new hero abilities, which are also weapons for the most part. The kill switch revolvers are dual wield revolvers that kind of allow your character to slow down time as far as your own movement is concerned.
Slowing down time
the
is
aim
good.
down sight button, so you can kind of dive and freeze in air with these weapons. It's really weird to fight against somebody using them. The base boost gloves allow you to shoot balls of energy at people, and then these balls of energy, when they hit things, will kind of send them flying. But you can also do this to send yourself flying because you travel opposite. You travel in the direction opposite of where you're facing when you shoot it. So if you wanted to go forward, you could turn and look behind you, shoot it, and then you would go forward, kind of like how shockwaves work at times. And then if you hit your aim down sight button with these boost clubs, you'll kind of send yourself vertical, and you can combine this to chain it for movement. So you can send yourself up and then look behind you and shoot a few balls of energy to go the direction you want to go. And this comes in blue and purple rarity. I don't believe it comes in gold. The blue ones have 2 uses, the purple ones have 3, and then the uses recharge over time. Kind of similar to how the kinetic blade was between blue and purple, having 2 uses and 3 uses. But this is kind of the main mobility item of this season. The tracking visor scans the area around you and has a 25-second cooldown. And then there's the mist gauntlets, which just seem like a damage over time item, kind of similar to how the force lightning was, where you do the attack and then just look at the person and do damage with that, but it uses crows instead of lightning. And then we also got 2 new sprites.
It looks like
the
a
water
laser
sprite and the air sprite were not unvaulted. These are the only sprites we have in the game right now. The dash sprite is the orange sprite, and it gives you dashes like the ones from the green water in Chapter 5 or the Godzilla Medallion in Chapter 6 Season 1. You just activate them by hitting your jump button twice or jumping while in air. And then the Superman sprite does damage with laser vision. I didn't get to use these at all.
There's a Superman sprite with laser vision.
This video 2 hours after the game was playable. but it just does things with laser vision. Not too excited for that one, but the dash sprite is very good. And I did actually get shockwaves when I turned the dash sprite into the shrine, but I have not seen shockwaves in the regular loot pool at all. I played like 4 matches, and I don't know if shockwaves, I don't think they're unvaulted. I didn't see anybody using them. I never saw them when looting. So I think the only way to get shockwaves right now is by turning the sprite into the shrine. For map changes, we got Utopia City replacing Seaport City, the Supernova Academy replacing Magic Mosses, and then Demon's Domain replacing Masked Meadows. So 3 POI changes, and then obviously there's several other like random areas on the map that changed as well. But as far as main POIs go, these were the changes. Loot Island is also different, and now it spawns in 2nd zone rather than 4th zone.
Loot Island spawns in 2nd zone instead of 4th.
Much earlier on in the game, and there is a boss there with a medallion as well that isn't Shogun X. Dago is at Demon's Domain, and when you defeat him, he drops a medallion which increases your reload speed and regens your shield up to 50 shield. And then he also has a Mythic Spire Rifle, and I believe this Mythic Spire Rifle does have an increased fire rate over the base Spire Rifle. And then on Loot Island, Core will be there, and when you defeat her, she will drop a medallion that gives you invisibility when you sprint jump. Not when you sprint, it's when you sprint jump. And then this also improves your sprint jump in pretty much every way. You'll go further, faster, and higher when you sprint jump, and this combines really well with the base boost gloves. And the fact that you can get it much earlier on in the game than you could the Shogun X medallion in Chapter 6 Season 1. I think this will be like a staple for mobility this season. And then Core will also drop a Mythic Deadeye DMR. And then the Robin NPC is actually at the building that used to be the black market at the Rainbow Field. And he sells a Bat Grappler for 600 gold. I didn't get to use this today because 600 gold is a lot early on in the season. But this gives you glider redeploy after you use it. If you've played Reload, it's similar to the Jules Grappler, but like the animations and like the angles are a bit different, but it like you grapple and then you glide. I don't know if you can cancel the animation on this like you could the Jules Grappler, because back in Chapter 1 when we had the Bat Grappler, people didn't really know to do that. But yeah, we have the Batman Grappler back in the game, and you can get it from the Robin NPC. I didn't see it in the regular loot pool at all though. And then we also got 3 new unstable weapons, and you get these, I believe, by defeating the large spires around the map. At least that's how I got one. And I'm not sure if it's like the same spire will have every weapon each time, or if it's just random when you defeat one of these giant spires, which unstable weapon you get. But we have the unstable voltage burst pistol. This is the burst pistol, obviously, and it makes it so the first and final shots from your mag produce a shockwave effect at the impact point. I actually really did not like this that much, and I didn't find it to be like a suitable replacement for shockwaves as far as movement goes. But there'd definitely be times where like maybe you shockwave somebody at a bush or like out from behind cover, and it's really good. But if you're using this for purely movement, I don't think it's that great. Okay. The unstable Frostfire shotgun is a sentinel pump shotgun, and when you hit an enemy with this, it either speeds you up or slows them down. And the effect is just random, I think, or maybe it alternates, I'm not sure. But the effect changes. It can either speed you up or slow them down. And then the unstable Yoink shotgun is an outlaw shotgun that will pull the enemy towards you if you hit them with the first shot in its mag. And this is kind of interesting because the outlaw shotgun only has 2 shots. And so
it really is called
the first
Yoink.
one will pull them to you, and then you get one more shot, and now your shotgun's out of ammo, and you got to swap to something else.
That's so cute.
One of the biggest things to talk about this season, and something I've seen a lot of misinformation about, is going to be the hero ranks. I will probably make a dedicated video about this in a day or two. But as you do things on the island this season, like get eliminations, last storm circles, defeat bosses or guards, give sprites to the shrines, you will gain hero points and progress through the levels. And this hero rank resets every match. It doesn't carry over from game to game. Everyone starts every match at
So what's
seat.
the point of it?
And when you rank up your hero tier, you will gain 100 effective health. And this is where the misinformation comes in. This just means you get healed from it. It's basically like Siphon. I've seen a lot of people confused, thinking someone S tier will have like 500 health. That's not how it works at all. It just heals you. It does not increase your total health at all. And then at the higher hero ranks, you can open the better hero caches around the map.
Oh, there's
and then
caches.
you also get
okay.
bonus effects from boons. And
I was
so
like, what's the point?
there's different hero caches around the map. It's not like when you open a cache, it just depends on your rank.
I get it.
There's some caches that are S tier and you need to be S tier to open them. There's some that are A tier and you need to be A tier or higher to open it. If you're S tier, you can open every cache. At S tier, you will get a gold weapon, a gold healing item, so a chug jug, a guaranteed boon, and a hero item. At A tier, you will get purple loot. At B tier, you will get blue loot. And at C tier, you will get green loot. And this is the chests themselves, not your rank. As I said, the chest has a rank. If you open a C tier chest while S tier, you get green loot from it.
Oh,
Only S and A tier crates have guaranteed boons, but B and C tier hero crates have a chance to give you boons. And you can actually see these crates on the map. We also got several new boons with this season, and as I already said, they get better as your hero rank increases. And so you want to be increasing that hero rank to get the better loot chests and get the better effect from the boons. The Stormcaller boon regens your shield while you're in the storm, and the amount you gain will increase as your hero rank
regens your
does.
shield while you're in
And then
storm,
at
but
S tier rank,
you don't
if
lose
have
shield
this
in the
boon,
storm.
you get storm.
You lose greenhouse
forecast,
in the
so
storm.
you can see the next zone for the
Hold
remainder
on.
of the game. If you
What?
have this boon, you get storm forecast, so you can see the next zone for the remainder
Storm
of the game.
forecast.
That
That's
effect is
helpful.
very good. The speed healer boon allows you to sprint
Getting
using
shield while
healing
you're in
items,
storm
and then you also get slap for a period
doesn't
of
make
time
sense
after
because you don't
healing.
lose shield in the
And
storm.
the amount of slap you get, or the duration of slap you get, depends on your hero rank. So the higher rank, you get a longer duration of slap. And then at S tier, you will get slap immediately while healing. Slap is just the effect that gives you unlimited sprint for a period of time. The combat acrobat boon makes it so parkour, like mantling or wall running, partially reloads your weapons, and the higher rank, the more ammo you get back, obviously. And then at S tier, all of your weapons will be reloaded if you do any parkour. That is a pretty good effect, and if they left the wall bouncing
Weapons
in the game,
reloading for
you
doing
could probably
parkour
have
is good.
combined that pretty well, but
I
wall
do lots of
bouncing is not
parkour in
currently
games,
the
just
game. They
jumping
did
over
not
stuff.
bring that back. You can still wall run, but the bouncing between walls you can't do. And then finally, the heightened senses boon marks
Jumping over
anybody
stuff.
who damages you. And
What's up,
how
y'all?
long they are marked depends on your hero rank. And then at S tier, the cooldown effect, the cooldown for this effect is lower. So if someone shoots you, they get marked, but there's a cooldown for this effect. So it's not like every time you get shot, they will be marked. If you're getting shot by several different people in short succession, it maybe won't mark all of them. But at S tier, it'll cool
Bro,
down.
when I say my hair grew,
And that is going to be it for this
It
video. Hopefully you found this, helpful, informative, or interesting. There was a lot to cover and a lot to explain with this season. As always, if you guys did enjoy this video or find it helpful, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more.
Okay,
I
good
will
stuff.
see you guys
Thank you,
in the
Jake.
next one. Thanks for watching.
I like watching Jake. He always got the tea. Let's see. I wonder if Mr. Baldwin's got any new videos. He probably does. I like watching Mr. Baldwin. Senor Baldwin. It's this one thing. Bro, we watched A. Marie on Tiny Desk. If I can't say a word, I'm just gonna shake my head because wow. It wasn't good. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. It didn't hit at all for me. At all. Didn't hit for me. I didn't like it at all. I mean, her music is good. It's okay. But she, at one point, went to the audience because her voice like gave out. She couldn't sing anymore. And I'm like, did you know you were going to be singing? Did you not vocalize, train? Did you do anything to prepare to be on stage for, 15, 20 minutes? It was kind of embarrassing. I was low-key embarrassed for her.
Today, we're going to look at 3 places you can't go and people who went there anyways. But before we get into those stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in
If y'all don't like scary
format,
stuff, you might
then
want to
you've
click
come
off.
to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So if that's of interest to you, please gift the like button a brand new puzzle, but don't tell them you've secretly removed 2 of the pieces.
Oops.
Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's stories. Just before midnight on August 20th, 2012, a 19-year-old college student named Rose Marr and her best friend, 19-year-old Elizabeth Nass, walked down Main Street in their hometown of Ellicott City, Maryland. It was their last night together before they each would head back to college in separate states. And so to cap off what had felt like a perfect summer, they decided to grab a few beers, despite being underage, and head on over to their favorite hangout spot, a train trestle that ran over Main Street. A train trestle is literally a bridge, but for trains. Now, to be clear, this train trestle was not like some secret daredevil hideout spot. Lots of people knew about it. Lots of kids in town, including Rose and Elizabeth, had been up here many, many times. And while there was an active train track that ran across it, the ledge on the trestle where everybody would sit when they were up there was several feet away from the tracks, kind of safely out of the way. You could be up there looking down over the town, and a train could literally pass right by you and not affect you. So overall, it was safe. So Elizabeth and Rose climbed up onto the train trestle
I don't
and
know
took
if I
their seats
believe
along
that
the
overall
ledge,
it's a safe
safely
part.
away from the tracks.
But we'll see what
They
happens.
cracked open a few beers and began talking about their upcoming semesters. They talked about which classes they were going to take and what they were looking forward to and really how much they were going to miss each other. And then at some point, Rose pulled out her phone and she took a photo of her and Elizabeth's feet dangling off the trestle. Basically, the photo captured their feet kind of hovering over Main Street. Then she posted that photo to Twitter, and then as soon as she hit post, she and Elizabeth heard this loud screeching sound coming from right behind them. When they turned around to see what it was, something huge smashed into them.
Yikes.
And then it went black. That loud screeching sound was the sound of a train passing by right behind them. But remember, the tracks are set far enough back that, the train, it couldn't hit them. And in this case, the train was not the thing that hit these 2 girls. Instead, it was something truly unfortunate that happened to them. When that train passed by the girls, it partially derailed. Not a full scale, like cars going everywhere off the tracks, but instead, several of these cars basically toppled over to their sides. And some of those cars that toppled over were carrying thousands of pounds of coal. And these were open cars. You can literally see the coal as the train goes by. And so as the train's going by, those cars topple, all this coal comes out, and the coal smashed into Rose and Elizabeth and fully buried them. It was like they were under an avalanche, but not of snow, of coal. And so by the time the girls were pulled out of the coal, they were already dead. Rose and Elizabeth were the only 2 fatalities from this derailment. Their families would later sue the railroad company alleging negligence, and each family would receive a settlement, though the exact amounts were never disclosed.
Of course not.
Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and so in honor of that, I wanted to share a quick story about my own
I hope you
mental
guys
health.
are taking care of your mental
So
health.
back in 2017, I got out of the military after several years, and I really went through a sort of identity crisis. So much of who I was wrapped up in being a Navy SEAL, but now that I was out on the other side, it was like I didn't know who I was anymore, and I didn't even know what job to get or really what to do with my life. And it was sort of like this existential crisis that really sent me into a very dark and depressing spiral. But instead of seeking help or telling anybody about it, I began sort of lashing out at family and friends and just kind of being a downer everywhere I went. It wasn't until my family and friends, because they loved me, stepped in and said, "You really need to see someone," that I finally understood the impact I was having on other people and how bad things had gotten for me. And so I did go out and I spoke to a therapist. And at first, I admit
Unchecked
I
mental
wasn't
health
sold that
issues
this was
affects
going to be
more
a
than
big
just you.
solution for me. But
They
pretty
affect the
quickly,
people
having
closest
that
to you as
neutral
well.
third party to kind of bounce ideas off of and
Make sure
gain
you take care of your
perspective
mental
from
health. You know what I mean?
really changed my life, and it set me on a course to where I'm happy today. I still see a therapist, but It's therapy that got me to this place right now, this equilibrium I have reached. It's
Not
because of
saying
therapy.
you have to get therapy.
So if you're
but
struggling right now,
take
I
care of
would
your mental
highly
health.
suggest thinking about therapy as an option.
it matters.
And a great starting point for therapy is BetterHelp. Primarily because it's entirely online. So it's very easy, it's accessible. All you have to do is fill out a quick survey online, and then within 2 days, they'll pair you up with a licensed therapist. And if for any reason you want to change your therapist, you can do that at any time at no additional cost. Click the link in the description below, or go to betterhelp.com/MrBallin to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Again, that's betterhelp.com/MrBallin to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Okay, back to the stories. At 6 p.m. on October 27th, 2014, a 17-year-old boy named Jesus Meneses was playing basketball with a group of friends on an outdoor basketball court at Kinloch Park in Miami, Florida. The friends had broken up into two teams
Why is it
and were
always
in the middle
Miami?
of a very intense pickup game. And the game was pretty close, and Jesus' team was doing pretty well. But at some point, when Jesus and his team had possession, one of his teammates just got frazzled by the defense and just took this crazy three-point shot from way behind the line, and the ball just sailed right past the hoop, completely missed it, air ball,
Airball.
it bounced, and then went clean over this chain link fence on the edge of the park. And as soon as this happened, Jesus and all of his friends let out a collective groan, because they knew basically anything that went over that fence was pretty much gone forever. But
Like the
to
sand lot.
Jesus' surprise, one of his friends turned to Jesus and was like, "Hey, why don't you just hop the fence?"
I'm so impressed by
Now,
the length of my
Jesus
hair.
really did not want to do that. I mean, he had been coming to this park since he was like 1 year old with his family, and
I
his
love it
mom and
so
dad
much.
had always told him to never,
And it's
ever
healthy, like,
climb that fence.
it's not
Never.
damaged
But
at
now,
all, bro.
Jesus'
All the way
friend
to the
asked him
ends.
to do this.
It's
They
just
kind of like
healthy.
turned it into a dare, and he's like, "No, really, come on, Jesus, like, go hop the fence and get the ball." And the other friends had kind of picked up on this, and they were kind of egging it on, being like, "Yeah, Jesus, go over there, get the ball." And so Jesus knew, like, this is not a good idea. I cannot go over that fence.
Then don't go over the
And here I
fence.
am, surrounded by all my peers, basically egging me on to go do
Peer
it.
pressure,
And
see?
he didn't want to look weak or scared. And
Don't
so
let
he's thinking
people
to
peer
himself,
pressure you.
hey, what's the worst that could happen? And he's like, all right, I'll go get it.
If
And
you
so
look
Jesus
weak,
left
oh
the
well.
basketball court and walked
cares
over
what they
to this
think?
fence. And it was about 7 feet tall, and there was all this barbed wire across the top of it. And so as he's standing there looking at the fence, he turns
Don't make
back
dumb
around.
decisions to impress
His
other
friends are all
people.
smiling, like, yeah,
If they
go
won't
get
do it,
And
don't you do it either.
"Okay." And he begins climbing
Don't
the
be the
fence.
hero.
And he gets to the top, and he reaches the barbed wire, and he very carefully positions himself so he doesn't cut himself on the way over. And right after he's cleared the barbed wire, he
Look
kind
at
of
that.
tumbles to the
How
other
long
side of
my
the
hair.
fence. He hits the ground,
Yikes.
and he's kind of shaken up from hitting the ground pretty hard. But
I
he
just- I'm
stands up,
loving it.
dusts himself off,
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
realizes he's okay, and he turns and looks through the fence now at his friends, and they're all cheering him on. And so now Jesus is feeling really confident, and he kind of smiles at his friends like he's the hero now. And he turns, and sure enough, there's the basketball just a few feet away. So he walks over, picks up the basketball, and chucks it over the fence back to his friends. And Jesus was about to climb over the
Nobody
fence
else had
and
a
go
ball,
rejoin
though?
his friends when he happened to look back in the direction of where his basketball had been, and he noticed there was another basketball that somebody else had lost over this fence.
Now you do it.
Except this basketball was on the other side of a second fence.
Nah.
Basically, once you climb this first fence,
Nope.
a couple of feet later, there is a second fence. These were the two fences that Jesus and everybody who ever came to this park were warned about. Never climb them.
Don't do it.
But Jesus has already climbed the first one.
Don't do it.
He's got his basketball.
Jesus,
and
no.
He's thinking, I can climb the second one too, and I can get that basketball,
See?
and then we'll have two.
That
So
false
if we ever
confidence
lose
will get you
another
every
one,
time.
we have a backup. So, without even telling his friends, Jesus walks over to the second fence.
Most
which is
guys who
basically
play ball
identical
have
to
more
the
than one
first
ball.
fence. About 7 feet tall, a bunch of barbed wire at the
No
top.
pun intended.
He
Like,
carefully climbs to the top, and he kind of positions himself over the barbed wire, and then he drops down to the other side. Except this time, when he hits the ground after clearing that second fence, something horrible happens.
Yeah.
Within seconds of Jesus landing inside of that second fenced-in area, his friends back on the court saw what was going on and began totally panicking. They're screaming, they're running around, they don't know what to do. Eventually, one of them would call 911, and then minutes later, first responders show up and they find Jesus' friends. They're totally frantic. They're all pointing toward the fenced-in areas. And the first responders, they look and they know right away there's virtually nothing they can do to save Jesus. The reason these fences were totally off limits, the reason Jesus' family specifically warned him from when he was a young kid to never ever climb them, was because inside of the second fenced-in area was an electrical power grid. And there were signs all over these two fences warning people to stay back, that it was dangerous, no trespassing, like fatalities will occur if you go in here. But Jesus ignored the warnings.
And those power grids
And
are
he climbed the
everywhere in
first
Florida.
fence, and he climbed the second fence. Except when he landed inside of that second fenced-in area, he landed on a live electrical wire. And the second he did, 500,000 volts of electricity coursed through his body.
Make smart decisions,
For
guys.
reference, the average lightning bolt contains about 300,000 volts of electricity. So as soon as Jesus
Almost
hit
twice
that
that.
wire, it was like the equivalent of 2 lightning bolts striking him at once, but not just one time.
Over and over.
And over again.
'Cause it's a
So
circuit.
unfortunately, Jesus died almost immediately.
But make smart decisions, guys. That's why I watch these things. It's a reminder, because the whole purpose of this one right here is
On the afternoon,
places you
April
can't go and
22nd,
people who went
2023,
anyway. Like,
a 49-year-old
you can't go.
farmer
You're not supposed to go.
Carl O'Keefe
Don't go.
crawled through a cave
Make
system
smart decisions,
in
bro.
England. He was on his hands and knees, shuffling his way forward, and the only light that guided him through this tight, small tunnel was the headlamp on his head. So Carl was an adventurer. He loved things like rock climbing and exploring caves, but this particular cave he wasn't that familiar with. He'd only been here a couple other times, and he didn't have a map,
I
so
already
really
know
he
what's gonna
didn't
happen to
actually
this guy,
know
I
where
can
he was
tell.
going. But Carl wasn't remotely worried. because
Once
he
you've seen
knew
enough
this was
Mr. Ballin
easily
videos,
the
you can kind of
safest cave
predict
system he had
where it's
ever
gonna
explored.
go.
In fact,
Adventure,
this place
cave,
was so safe
herd.
that often people showed up with their
I know what's
kids
gonna
and let
happen.
them run around freely with no fear they were going to get hurt. And so Carl has no worries here. And also he's thinking to himself, he's not very far into this particular tunnel. He can actually still hear the other people and their kids kind of right behind him. And so again, even though he doesn't really know where he is, he feels completely fine. And so Carl continued crawling through this tunnel, and eventually he reached this T intersection where he just had to choose between going right and left. And again, he's got no map. He doesn't really know where he's going. So he decides,
No
I'll
map.
just
Oh my
right.
God.
And so he begins going down this tunnel, which closely resembled the tunnel he had just
Bro.
came from. But as
What has to be going through your brain to explore a cave you've never been in before with no map? Not me.
he was crawling along, he started to feel like the
Not me.
walls around him were kind of shrinking, and it was getting harder and harder to push his body through this tunnel. And then finally, when it felt like it was so tight around him and it was getting so claustrophobic that maybe he should just turn around, he reached a dead end.
Yeah.
That's all this was. The
And now
right
you can't turn around.
was just a dead end. And so he thought, okay, I'll just turn around
It's
and
too
go back
tight.
the way I came and, maybe explore the left side. So in order to do that, Carl decided he would make a U-turn with his body. He would literally just turn around and go back the way he came, leading with his head and his upper body. And so he's facing the dead end. He's on his hands and knees. And he begins doing this U-turn. And he kind of turns and gets his head and his shoulders and his upper half kind of folded around until they're looking back in the direction he was coming. But he was too physically big to get his lower half to complete the U-turn. And so he was effectively wedged in this U-shaped position. He couldn't do anything. He was just stuck. But Carl didn't panic, because he knows this is a safe place. This is not a big deal. Nobody gets hurt in these cave systems.
Is it a safe space?
And I just need to rethink how I go back the way I came. Clearly, this U-turn attempt is not working. And so he decides, okay, let's reset. I'll pull my shoulders and my upper body back, and I'll reset facing the dead end. I'll basically go back to exactly the position I was just in. Except when he tried pulling his upper body and his head and his shoulders back to where he was facing the dead end, he realized he was also stuck going in that direction.
Yikes.
He couldn't go back to the way he was, and he couldn't return in the direction he
Yikes.
had come. He was stuck in this U shape and couldn't go anywhere. Now, again, Carl is telling himself that it's gonna be okay. This is a safe place. Kids play here. Like, this is no big deal. I'm gonna be okay. And so he tried, to kind of shimmy himself one way or the other, but it was like no matter what he did, he just could not move out of this U shape. And as that happened, he began to kind of panic. His heart rate began to rise. It became harder to breathe. It felt like the walls
You don't
of his
think
cave
logically
were
when you
kind of
panic,
pushing
just so
down
you
on
know.
him. And before
You
long,
gotta
he was
breathe,
becoming overwhelmingly
calm down.
claustrophobic. It just
That
felt
way
like
you
the
can think
walls of this
clearly.
tunnel were
When you panic,
pushing him.
you make bad
He began
decisions.
to panic, and he just started screaming out for help. Immediately, some of the staff who heard Carl yelling out made their way into this tunnel system and actually saw Carl. They could see him in this U-shape, totally wedged. And at first they couldn't understand what was even happening here. But when they tried to pull him out, they couldn't get him to move. I mean, he really was totally stuck here. And so sensing that this was a true emergency, the staff backed out and they called the fire department. And the fire department, they came out and they too could not get Carl out. He was stuck. And so pretty quickly, Carl realized all he could do here was just do his best to stay calm, because this position he was in was really restricting his breathing, not to mention, the tunnel itself is pressing down on him. And so he just tried to stay calm and kind of have measured breaths, and he kept thinking, the rescue team, they're right there. They're gonna get me out of here quickly, I know it. But much to Carl's shock, and to the shock of all the first responders, they didn't get Carl out quickly. Instead, it would take an agonizing 4 hours to finally free him. And during those 4 hours, Carl got weaker and weaker and weaker and more panicked. The instant Carl was out of the tunnel, he was rushed to the nearest hospital and admitted to the intensive care unit. And there, they would discover he had suffered all these extensive crush injuries from being in that position for so long. He had severe bone damage, organ damage, and nerve damage. I mean, he was in horrible shape. And despite heroic efforts by medical staff to try to save Carl, ultimately, he would die 8 days later from those injuries. And his death would become massive news, because it really seemed impossible that somebody could die in that cave system, because it was meant to be so safe. This cave system was not like an underground cave system where spelunkers go. No, this was a cave system for kids. It was a kids' play place. All the tunnels and the cave itself was made out of plastic, again, so kids could crawl and explore. But adults
You weren't a kid,
were told
Carl.
they too could go through those tunnels with their kids. And so Carl had gone to a birthday party for one of his kids' friends. He had brought his kids along, and being the devoted father that he was, he went right in there with his kids and was crawling all around and goofing around with the kids until, unfortunately, he got stuck.
That sucks.
In case you haven't heard yet, our newest
Make smart
graphic
decisions.
novel, Mr. Ballin Presents Where Nightmares Live, is available for pre-order right now. It contains another 9
Make
heart-stopping,
smart
strange, dark, and
decisions,
mysterious stories,
people.
all based on real events. This was a passion project. It took a lot of time, a lot of people involved, from the artwork to the storytelling. I mean, this is a beautiful piece to add to your collection, so you got to check it out. The book comes out on September 30th, but again, you can pre-order your
think
copy
that's- yeah,
at
that's the end.
book.ballinstudios.com.
Good
Or you
video.
can click the link in the description.
We can look at something a little more upbeat. I usually like this Be Amazed channel. Nickelodeon theories that will ruin your childhood. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Part of growing up is realizing that all your favorite kid shows were actually horrifying. From the unbelievable crimes committed by SpongeBob SquarePants to the grim origins of Cat Dog, here are some Nickelodeon theories that'll ruin your childhood. Scary godparents. Everyone knows that the fairies of Fairly Odd Parents exist to make kids happy. They're assigned to sad children to grant their every wish. Aw, so wholesome. Or so I thought. You see, I've been doing some thinking. Fairy World's magical society literally cannot function without sad children. We see in the musical special Schools Out that if all the kids on Earth were happy, fairies wouldn't be able to grant wishes. The magic they would have used doesn't just disappear though, it builds up inside of them, and if left unchecked, ultimately makes them explode. So it's in the interest of their survival
Explode,
for
go
kids to
crazy.
be sad so they can expel all that dangerous magical energy on wishes. See where I'm going with this? The fairies make the children of Earth miserable on purpose. But how? Well, fairies wipe the memories of kids when they grow up or no longer need them. It's supposedly done to ensure that adults don't learn about magic, but the theory goes that that's just a cover-up. The real reason is far more nefarious. See, although adults forget about their fairy godparents, they don't forget they had happy childhoods. They just don't remember why. That means that even if they had neglectful parents like Timmy's, they'll remember being happy. Because of this, they're doomed to repeat the same mistakes as their parents. So their own kids become sad and need fairy godparents. And the cycle continues. There's evidence of this
That's
too.
an interesting
In the
theory.
special channel chasers, Timmy is shown as a father and he's just as bad as his own
I remember that
parents.
episode.
I'm here to babysit the little targets. I mean, the precious gifts from above. Ha 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 ha.
But whoops, gotta go. I'm gonna be late. Bye, Tammy. Bye, Tommy.
So, to summarize, the fairies are a race of parasites feeding off the despair of humanity for their own benefit. Jeez, with resumes like that, they should go into politics.
That's crazy.
Puff's past. Ah, Mrs. Puff, SpongeBob's much aggrieved driving instructor. I always felt sorry for her, having to put up with the yellow fellow shenanigans all the time. That is, until I made some startling discoveries. The so-called Mrs. Puff is a lot less innocent than she first appears. In the episode No Free Rides, Puff contemplates leaving Bikini Bottom, changing her name, and starting a brand new boating school.
And then she says not
dismisses
again.
the idea, saying,
Not again.
Right.
"Not again? Well, that's suspicious." She also remarks in the episode Doing Time that losing her sanity isn't a road she wants to go down again.
That's a road we don't want to go down again.
There's that word again. Right.
She's a
Just
criminal.
how many times has she lost her
A
mind
smooth
and
criminal.
started a new life? And in another episode, we see inside Mrs. Puff's house, revealing that she's been hoarding other characters' possessions, including SpongeBob's diary. What? Just when you think it can't get any fishier,
That's
in
weird.
that same episode, she appears on the front of a newspaper with the damning headline, "Deranged boat teacher makes getaway." Oh boy. Supposedly, she distracted authorities with balloon animals while making her escape. Now watch this clip from No Free
She's a
Rides.
criminal, right?
I hope I still remember how
How
to
to
do this.
yeah. Balloon animal.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any denying it. Mrs. Puff is actually an insane, kleptomaniacal
She is.
criminal from out of town, living under a fake identity to avoid the law.
She is.
And you think you know somebody. I can neither
Indeed.
confirm nor deny whether I'm hiding a criminal past of my own, but I
Oops.
assure you my future will be filled with awesome videos like this one. If you want to be there when they drop, why not like and subscribe? That way you'll never miss out again. All finished? Awesome. Let's get back to the theories. Angelica's Angels. Any discussion about Nickelodeon theories would be incomplete without bringing up the granddaddy of them all. I'm just gonna say it. The babies on the Rugrats are all figments of Angelica's imagination. In reality, they're all dead. I know, just hear me out. You know how Stu, Tommy, and Dill's dad is always spending countless hours making toys in the basement? Well, according to this popular theory, it's not actually his job, it's a coping mechanism. Supposedly, Tommy didn't survive his birth, leaving a distraught Stu to slave away making toys for the son he never had. Yikes.
That's dark.
And what about the other Rugrats? Well, we already know Chucky's mom passed away at some point prior to the story, but what if Chucky went alongside her in, say, a car crash or something? That tragedy would certainly explain why his dad Chaz is the nervous wreck we see in the show. As for twins Phil and Lil, the DeVilles were expecting but decided to terminate their pregnancy. As Angelica never knew the gender of the child to be, she imagined both outcomes. Kimmy is explained a little differently. She is alive, but Angelica has never actually met her. Her mother, Kiera, lost custody of her. When she married Chaz and moved to the U.S., Angelica heard the stories and added Kimmy to the group. Like this, the lonely girl created the friends she never had. Yikes. But what about Dill? Well, Dill is the only real baby in the cast. He's the only one that actually acts like one and so can't talk to Angelica. Ah, pretty convincing, right? Well, I don't buy it. I know it's a popular theory, but it sounds like an almighty stretch to me. Thankfully, co-creator Arlene Klasky agrees. She outright debunked the theory in 2016. Case closed. Childhood saved. Phew. Don't get too comfortable, though. That's the last time you'll hear those words today. Drake and Josh and everyone. Nick's live-action sitcoms were game-changing when they started rolling out in the 90s, but Naughty's hit Drake and Josh was arguably the most popular. It follows the titular stepbrothers as they get up to all kinds of wacky hijinks. So far, so standard. But this next theory claims it stands out from Nick's other sitcoms, or Nickcoms, in one very significant way. It's a show within a show.
Yeah.
See, all the Nickcoms after D&J are in the same universe. We know this because they regularly cross over with each other. Drake and Josh, though, we see characters in other shows like iCarly watching episodes of it. So this is hardly a theory at all. It's a fact. Drake and Josh is a Nickcom within a Nickcom. But it goes deeper. In one iCarly episode, Drake and Josh side characters Craig and Eric make a flesh and blood appearance. But if they're meant to be fictional characters in the greater Nickverse, how does that make any sense? Well, get this. Drake and Josh is not fictional. It's a reality show with a Truman Show-esque twist. The titular brothers are the stars with no idea the extent to which their lives are on show to the world. Ever wondered how their sister Megan ends up with all those crazy gadgets?
Not
and
her name being
gizmos?
Megan.
The showrunners are dropping them to her to spice things up. Now, the duo are aware they're in a show, seeing as they speak to the audience at the start of each episode, but the theory goes they have no idea that the cameras keep rolling to capture all their misfortune. That's gotta be illegal, right? The Krabby Patty secret formula. Admit it, ever since first watching SpongeBob SquarePants, you've wanted to know what goes into
Yeah.
Krabby Patties to make them just so
Mr. Krabs at one point made it
addictive.
seem like there was plankton in it.
Fortunately, I figured it out, and I really wish I hadn't. Hear me out. The key ingredient in a burger like the Krabby Patty is
It's
meat,
crab, right?
So where does Mr. Krabs get it? Buckle up. Most residents of Bikini
I know
Bottom
this
are
theory.
intelligent
Because the
anthropomorphic
Krusty Krab is a crab trap.
The only other creatures we see are small fry like sea snails, worms, and clams, which are depicted as subservient pets. But if the only possible source of meat are citizens and pets, that doesn't look great for old Mr. Krabs. Best case scenario, he's been cooking the Bikini Bottom equivalent of cats and dogs and grinding them up into patties. Jeez. Will Gary be next then? This sordid reality has been hidden in plain sight the whole time, too. Think
Size
about
down
it.
this
The
window.
Krusty Krab's chief competition is the chum bucket. Chum is literally ground up fish, used by fishermen to attract larger fish. The larger fish being, in this case, SpongeBob and Co. Sure, nobody likes the chum bucket, but that's probably just because it doesn't
Just to make sure we don't
sugarcoat
have any
reality
copyright
like
issues.
Mr. Krabs' place does. And that's the
We're watching
nonsense.
Be Amazed.
The even darker alternative is that Bikini Bottomites themselves are rounded up, butchered, and turned into chum before being sold in patties and cannibalized. No matter which way you look at it, it's super messed up.
It is.
Of course, there is one other possibility, that the burgers are all plant-based. All the Bikini Bottomites could just be chowing down on veggie burgers. Who knows? Maybe it's the meat eater in me, but I can't picture anybody going as crazy as they do over the vegetarian option. Stew Prize. Now, I know Rugrats is set in the 90s and they didn't live in an economic hellscape back then, but the Pickles family did rather well for themselves, didn't they? A big house and enough income to support the whole family? That said, Stu is depicted as the main breadwinner, yet doesn't hold a steady job, relying instead on erratically selling whatever invention he comes up with next. In the first movie, his brother points out that not only does he have no insurance, but no savings either. What gives? How have the Pickles kept afloat? I'll tell you how. Stu has a dark secret. Know how he's an avid inventor? Well, when he's down in the basement, he's not making innocent toys. He actually creates high-tech weaponry
high-tech
and sells
weaponry.
it to criminal gangs, foreign governments, and black market agents. Think
That's a
about
stretch.
it. The Reptar wagon, supposedly the definitive kid's toy, is for some reason equipped with flamethrowers? I wouldn't let a kid anywhere near that thing. Hell, he even built a giant mecha Reptar that went on a rampage in Paris. Let's be honest, Stu doesn't sell toys. That's just a cover story. He sells deadly weapons. How many lives have been lost because of his infernal works? How many families shattered? These are the questions that keep me up at night.
Do they? Keep you up at night?
SpongeBob's body count.
Uh-oh.
We've already established that the residents of Bikini Bottom are no stranger to dastardly deeds, but surely SpongeBob himself is as innocent as they come? Wrong. He's the worst of the lot. And I'm not just theorizing. Check this out.
I'm going to the moon, SpongeBob.
The moon. Can I go?
No way, SpongeBob. Especially after your little mishap with my whirlybird.
Oh my God. There are well over 50 gravestones here, all because of SpongeBob. Just for some context, notorious monster John Wayne Gacy only offed 33 people in 6 years. SpongeBob beat him in a single whirlybird incident, something he clearly shows no remorse for. What exactly happened? We may never know, and that's not all. In another episode, Bubble Buddy, SpongeBob left a fish buried near a pool of brine on the pretense that he could experience high tide. The Bubble Buddy he'd created was supposed to dig him out and stop him from drowning. It
And didn't.
SpongeBob literally left him to die. And how many civilians has everyone's favorite sponge ran over while boating recklessly? Not to mention that time he utterly decimated Bubble Town.
My bubble leg!
His body count must be well
My
over
bubble leg
100
go
by
crazy.
now. I think it's safe to say that this sponge is not only the most heinous criminal in Bikini Bottom, he's one of the deadliest in the world. Alone in the World. Cat Dog is a weird show even by Nickelodeon standards. It follows the titular character or characters of Cat and Dog, who are fused together into one freaky hybrid animal. Only the show never explains where the hell they came from, nor how they were joined, which has led to some wild theories. Some people say they're the work of a mad scientist conducting inhumane experiments in a hidden laboratory, but I'm here to offer a less cliche theory. Ever noticed how rundown and decrepit the city of Nearburg where Cat Dog is set is?
Yeah.
And isn't it odd that it's entirely populated by
By
strange
dogs.
humanoid animals?
Yeah.
Well, that's because the show is set after a nuclear apocalypse.
I don't know if
The
it's
animals of
happening.
Nearburg were mutated by the fallout, causing them to gain incredible intelligence and morph into new strange forms. Cat Dog was originally a separate cat and dog before they became fused together by the radiation and began a joint life of existential suffering.
Okay.
And there would be a lot of
I could buy
suffering.
that theory though.
Now one just thought abomination.
Because they are conjoined.
Cat Dog's reproductive and waste disposal organs were eradicated. So yes, they're forced to poop out of each other's mouths.
Yes.
No wonder cats are always so
Bro,
creepy.
that's a stretch.
Hey Helga. Hey Arnold is a classic Nicktoon that follows the adventures of the titular Arnold as he navigates life in the big city. At least that's what the showrunners would have you believe. Let's look at another character, Helga. Helga is a supporting character that routinely bullies Arnold, though that's only to cover up
She's
her
annoying.
feelings for him. Her home life is hell with an alcoholic mother and a workaholic father. They shower love and praise on Helga's older sister, Olga, while not sparing Helga a second thought. They don't even care enough to remember to pack her lunch at times. Her whole life is a huge drama. In fact, it's the central drama. That's right. Hey Arnold isn't about Arnold at all.
It's about
It's
Helga.
a show about Helga.
Bro,
It's her struggles the viewer follows most often. She monologues almost every episode, and she's undoubtedly the driving force behind the story. I mean, come on. Who is it that repeatedly says, "Hey Arnold,"
Hey,
in
Arnold.
the opening credits?
okay.
That's right, Helga. The
Okay.
title is a quote from our real protagonist. Everything may superficially
I could buy
point to
that, though,
Arnold
like
being the
that.
main character, but that's
It
only
computes,
because from
you
Helga's
know?
perspective, he's the most important person in the world. The only person to ever show her true kindness and
That's
pay her
true.
real attention. Have you been cutting onions in here or something? Nasty
Bro is
karate.
doing too much.
Right. I'm sorry in advance for this one. Okay, here we go. In the SpongeBob episode Karate Choppers, SpongeBob and Sandy find themselves addicted to doing karate together. Whether it's at work, at home, in public, they just can't get enough. It gets so bad that SpongeBob can barely get any work done at the Krusty Krab. All he can think about is karate with Sandy. If you hadn't guessed by now, this theory states that karate doesn't have anything to do
Yeah,
with the
it's about
episode
sex.
at all. It's really about getting jiggy with it.
Even when they get caught by Mr. Krabs, they behave
Second, that
like they're
sounded like
guilty.
karate.
Oh shit!
They try their best to resist, but after watching each
I
other
definitely hit my microphone.
slice a big sausage, they can no longer hold back and end up karateing all over the place, leading to this scene.
You
Right.
think Mr. Krabs ever does karate?
Was that pillow talk? Followed by the duo being caught in a compromising
Bro.
position? Come on, Nick. At least try to be subtle. But if you're still not convinced, what does SpongeBob do when he comes home
That
to
is a
find
funny
Sandy there
theory.
ready to surprise him with karate?
Just a second. Safety first.
Safety first? What could that be an allegory for?
A condom.
Right, I'm done. The things I do for you sick, sick people.
Right. We're the sick people.
Timmy Turner's miserable life. So we know that Timmy Turner is a sad kid, neglected by his parents, belittled by his babysitter, bullied at school. Not fun. It's precisely why he's the perfect candidate for fairy godparents. You know, his magic friends he uses every day to make his sad life more bearable. Sound like anything else? Uh-huh. Cosmo and Wanda are metaphors for antidepressants. Whenever things get too tough for Timmy to deal with, he reaches for them. In universe, kids are supposed to lose their fairies when they turn 13, but Timmy is shown to somehow keep his. Could this mean his mental health struggles continue well into adulthood? Man, the fairies usually only ever help Timmy, providing him with some much-needed solace. But there's one exception. If Timmy abuses their power by using them too much, dangerous side effects arise, just like antidepressants, implying poor Timmy might take more than the recommended dose when he's in a particularly bad place. But what of his villainous teacher, Mr. Crocker? He's always going after Timmy's fairies. Is he actually a fellow addict desperate for his fix? That or a therapist attempting to curb Timmy's medication use. After all, Timmy's wishes almost always go wrong. Does that mean he's constantly dosing his medication too high and suffering the ill effects? I'm not sure about this one. What about you guys? Let me know down in those comments.
I don't know, bud.
Retroville Revenants. You ever stop and wonder what happened to the worlds of your favorite TV show after the series ended? I do. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about Jimmy Neutron. You know, the boy genius with an insane IQ of 210? Someone with his credentials doesn't end up at McDonald's. No, what if he was enlisted to work for the U.S. military? There, he creates unbelievable weapons, none like we've ever seen before. And when a colossal war breaks out, his high-tech weaponry inadvertently leads to the planet's near destruction. It doesn't end there, though. Bear with me on this. Over time, the U.S. is rebuilt with new buildings rising up over the ruins of the past, but not all could be hidden. The nuclear scorched ozone layer has left a gloomy purple shade. Meanwhile, Jimmy's now very elderly teacher, Miss Faust, struggles to deal with the loss of her husband in the war and becomes a cynical, depressed woman. To escape her loss, she decides to use her maiden name, Bitters. See where I'm going with this now? And in the cold vacuum of space, the incredible neutron tech that was used in the conflict alerts the evil Urkin Empire to the Earth's existence. Yep, the world of Jimmy Neutron becomes the one we see in Invader Zim. With the Earth barely recovered from global war, the Urkins see it as worthless. So it's the perfect place to ditch Zim, their worst invader. There he encounters Miss Bitters, but she's actually Miss Fowl, Jimmy's old teacher. And there's one other factor that links the two shows. Baby Eddie. Eddie is a Jimmy Neutron villain, a super intelligent evil baby, but according to this theory, he's not a baby at all. He's actually a member of the alien race, the Nargok, from Invader Zim. See, the Nargok are super intelligent evil aliens that look like human babies. Voila. It all makes sense. Kinda. What's next? Does iCarly turn into the list?
Somebody recommended to me that I watch Invader Zim.
Down.
I haven't been able to check it out yet,
A
though.
lonely only child. Oh boy, another Rugrats theory about Angelica. We can all agree that she's spoiled rotten, right? But why is that? Well, I think I have an answer, and it's not very fun. What if Drew and Charlotte have fertility issues? After unsuccessfully trying for a baby for so long, they finally get lucky with Angelica, so they shower her with affection. We know from the episode Angelica's worst nightmare that her parents are ecstatic when Charlotte's pregnancy test comes back positive. This implies that they want more children and have likely been trying for a while. Then at the end of the episode, they reveal that for an unspecified reason, Charlotte isn't pregnant after all. What if this was a miscarriage? And what if it was one of many that the pair had suffered? It would explain why Drew is more well off than his brother Stu, but always seems somewhat jealous of him. Because Stu and Dee Dee never had any problems conceiving. In fact, they have 2 kids. We see in the sequel series All Grown Up that Angelica is still an only child around a decade later and is just as spoiled as ever. I think what gives this theory such teeth is how realistic it is. The showrunners may have wanted to provide commentary on the touchy subject in a time when it was hardly discussed. If so, I applaud them. Fat Crab and Little Bob. The cast of SpongeBob is composed of a whole host of nautical freaks. You'd be forgiven for dismissing their unfauna-like intelligence as standard cartoon fare. But the real reason is rooted in horror.
I'm still here. I just gotta
Horror
take a pill and I don't want to do it on camera.
You see, Bikini Bottom seems to be based on Bikini Atoll, a real coral reef in the Marshall Islands. From 1946 to 58, this area was used by the United States as a testing ground for nuclear weapons. Our theory posits that after the test, the native wildlife became severely mutated. The ocean in the atoll was irradiated, exposing regular fish, squid, and, sea sponges to said radiation. What eventually evolved from the neo-primordial ooze was something new, something different, something square. SpongeBob and the rest of the Bikini Bottomites are all nuclear abominations. Need
Not
more
nuclear
evidence?
abominations.
Let's take a look at Mermaid Man and
His
Barnacle
word
Boy,
choices are
2
hilarious to
humans
me.
that live in the deep sea city. 2 humans, that is, that can breathe underwater and are the same size as the locals. I submit to you that this dynamic duo were Navy divers sent down to take samples after the tests who ended up being irreversibly mutated. Maybe they have gills now, though I don't want to know where. This could also explain the crazy technology they possess. It's abandoned military equipment they salvaged. Still not convinced? Well, hold your seahorses. SpongeBob routinely uses cutaways for comedic effect, and which one do the creators choose to use here? That clip is a recording of one of the Bikini Atoll nuclear tests. Okay, I'm convinced. Guess you could say this theory is the bomb.
Not the bomb.
Sorry, I'll see myself
I
out.
can't.
Dastardly Doug. Doug is an absolute classic.
I love
The
Doug.
cartoon follows the titular Doug Funny as he navigates school life alongside a colorful cast of characters, and I mean that literally.
Right?
Most supporting characters
Oh,
are of
nostalgia.
vibrant hue, with the most notable exceptions being Doug and his love interest Patty. But that's where
Girls are
the
beautiful,
nasty
but
part
they're
comes
very
in.
misleading.
Some people believe
They
that
make my hair
Doug
look
and
short
by
when it's not.
extension the creative team behind him are
It's actually quite
racist.
long, period.
Whoa. I know, but think about it. Of all the people around Doug, who does he have eyes for? One of the only other white characters in his class.
Patty mayonnaise.
Is it possible the show was pushing a supremacist message? After all, the other non-white characters are relegated to the background. I'm sure this theory would require those characters to be allegories for real-world racial groups, but is that really so unlikely? TV has been used as a medium to push all kinds of messages for decades. Luckily for everyone, though, the whole debacle was apparently unintentional. Creator of Doug, Jim Jenkins, came out and said he actually wanted to bypass the issue of race entirely, hence portraying the cast in the now iconic array of bright colors. Evidently,
That's one
this
reason why I
attempt
like
didn't
it.
work, but was Jim
There's no
telling the
definitive
truth or making a
race,
poor
color,
choice
skin
to
color.
save face? I'm inclined
They're
to give
all
him the benefit of the doubt here, but
very
anyway,
unnatural colors,
let me
which
know
is
down
good.
in those comments below. Dirty Dan. It's
Dirty
pretty well
Dan.
established that unfortunately show
I'm
business
Dirty
isn't
Dan.
always as magical as it seems.
Him and Pinhead Larry.
Nickelodeon is no exception, and I couldn't make a video on the topic without addressing that. Child actors on many of their netcoms have shared some harrowing stories about working on set. For years, the theories at the center of this maelstrom of controversy all led back to Dan Schneider, one of the lead Nickelodeon
I
creators.
watched that.
Dan was supposedly responsible for emotionally abusing the child stars he worked with. According to them, he'd regularly launch into shouting and screaming fits as he berated the kids for flubbing lines or even just for feeling uncomfortable with what he asked them to do. Indeed, it's all but proven that Dan Schneider made life hell for many of his child actors. Infamously, Amanda Bynes, Alexa Nicholas, and Jeanette McCurdy are all alleged to have suffered at his hands. The latter two have both directly and indirectly outright accused the guy of misconduct.
Yeah.
Jeanette alluded to an abusive creator in her memoir, and both she and Alexa have made various claims online about Schneider.
Hey, Dan Schneider. I know you're watching my Vine. You like my Vine? Fine. Look what you've done to me.
Man, that's dark. Seems like she's covering up her pain with humor.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the day,
Most
these
comedians
are all
do.
just allegations for now, but they're absolutely convincing ones. Sorry to end things on such a foul note. And with that, I most certainly had my fill of theories for one day. Which of these did you find the most convincing? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.
Okay. Let's find another one. Cartoon episodes that were banned for the most insane reasons. Video game theories that'll ruin your childhood. Even though I'm a gamer, I want to watch this one. Let's watch this one.
Is there any better way to start a Saturday morning than with cartoons? But there are some
I
episodes
did.
you aren't going to see on Nickelodeon
It's in Peanut Butter
or anywhere
Crunch.
else.
If you know, you know.
Yep, today we're taking a look at kids' TV episodes that proved too controversial for the small screen. From celebrity appearances that aged like milk to adult content that should never have got
Aged
past
like
the
milk is
censors,
crazy.
here are the craziest cartoon episodes that were banned. Porygon. In 1997, Pokemania was in full swing in Japan. While the rest of the world wouldn't get their first exposure to the anime TV series until the following year, it seemed the Pocket Monsters could do no wrong back home. That is, until the fateful day that the episode Electric Soldier Porygon aired. The episode itself was wholly uncontroversial. Ash and the gang find themselves battling the villainous Team Rocket inside cyberspace with the help of the artificial Pokemon Porygon. But then something happens which caused chaos across Japanese households. Near the end of the episode, some cyber missiles are launched at our heroes, which Pikachu heroically destroys using a thunderbolt attack. Only when the missiles are destroyed, rapidly flashing blue and red lights appear to mark the event. In certain people, flashing strobe lights of a certain frequency can cause an excessive response from the brain, triggering epileptic seizures. And because of the frame rate of the TV show, the lights were at the perfect frequency for this. Yes, this Pokemon episode wound up causing the hospitalization of over 600 kids.
Oh, wow.
Many suffered full-blown seizures, while others reported seizure symptoms, such as blindness, nausea, and convulsions. And that's without mentioning the thousands of others with symptoms who didn't go to the hospital. Yeesh. The episode was never aired again, and never dubbed into English.
That's
This
crazy.
was obviously a stain on the brand, so the Pokemon Company needed to do something about it. Did they punish Pikachu for his actions? Oof, not likely. Instead, it was poor old Porygon that got the shaft. The creature and its
And ironically
evolutions were
enough,
never given a featured
there's a
role in
Pikachu on the wall
series
behind me.
ever again. Over 1,000 episodes later, and Porygon is relegated to nothing more than occasional background appearances, all to
Aw.
cover up the crimes of the Golden Child.
Poor
Porygon did nothing wrong, and I, for one, am tired of pretending he did.
Period.
Dexter's Dirty Language.
All right,
If you grew
Dex.
up in the 90s, I'm sure you're aware of
I
how
always
popular
assumed
Cartoon
that
Network's
Dexter cursed.
Dexter's Laboratory was. The show follows boy genius Dexter as he gets up to a whole load of science-y hijinks alongside his annoying sister Dee Dee. But one particular adventure of
Dee Dee.
theirs was deemed far too shocking for TV. I'm talking about the infamous Rude Removal. In this episode, Dexter invents the Rude Removal system, which splits him and his sister into two versions, one polite pair and one very impolite pair. The nasty doppelgangers are crude, aggressive, and foul-mouthed.
What a Ollie! Beats the out of me!
mask clones go on to
What?
smash up Dexter's lab, berate his mom, and even insult her cooking.
Oh shoot.
What do you think, Dexter?
I think it tastes like
No way.
That's a little much, huh? Well, but that implied language is something else, and that's exactly why the story got pulled from air. Cartoon Network thought
Yeah.
that all the cursing was just too much. I mean, sure, it's definitely shocking, but it is censored. So personally, I don't see the issue. Heck, SpongeBob did a similar
Yeah.
episode a few years later.
With the dolphin
and it aired
sounds.
fine, although with some
They
controversy.
call them sentence enhancers.
how the fire.
Nice day, isn't it, Squidward?
But back to Dexter.
SpongeBob
If
did it
anything,
better.
The most shocking part of Rude removal is the title card, which shows Dexter mooning the camera and Dee Dee flipping at the bird. But what do you think? Was Rude removal worthy of being removed?
Back
Are
then,
censored
yes,
swears
when it aired.
still inappropriate for kids? Let me know down in the comments.
When it aired, yes. For the time, yeah.
Eight-legged freak.
But nowadays, no.
I
Kids are
don't like
pretty
spiders.
numb
There's
to
no
certain
way
things.
something should have that many
Some kids are
legs.
cussing coming
But
out the
a lot
womb.
of the time, spiders are nothing to fear. Something British children's cartoon Peppa Pig tried to convey in an episode from 2004 entitled Mr. Skinny Legs, only it backfired. Hard. In the episode, Peppa befriends a spider. See, UK spiders are highly unlikely to bite. Even if they did, there aren't any deadly species in the country. But that's certainly not the case somewhere else the episode was aired. Australia. See where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Encouraging Australian kids to play with the many highly venomous and sometimes deadly spiders in the country is reckless and irresponsible.
It is.
What's more, the episode even has Peppa playing with her arachnid friend and tucking it into bed. Just imagine a little rugrat watching this episode, then running outside,
Yeah.
stumbling on a Sydney funnel web, one of the deadliest in the world. Sure enough, after receiving complaints from angry parents, the episode was pulled off air and axed online.
Yeah.
Makes sense. The last thing you want to do is encourage kids to get in danger. But I'm going to encourage some fantastic behavior and tell you to like and subscribe. That way, you'll never miss out on more awesome
Like and
videos
subscribe to
like
their
this
channel.
one. All done? Nice.
They
Let's
post
get back
great
to more
content.
banned episodes.
Clearly, they've got almost 14
Banned
million
in
subscribers.
China. South Park is no stranger to controversy. It's crude and often
Bro, what was
offensive
he
humor
wearing?
spares
Oh my
to
God.
nobody. Naturally, this has led to the show getting a ton of flack, perhaps most notably from the Chinese government. That's right.
Of course.
The episode Banned in China aired in 2019 and took aim at the country's penchant for censorship. In it, one of the main characters, Randy Marsh, is arrested and subjected to communist re-education alongside Winnie the Pooh. What? See, hilariously, Winnie is censored across Chinese social media after jokes were made comparing the friendly bear to the country's president, Xi Jinping.
Okay.
Jinping, as you can gather, is a sensitive man. And this episode shines a light on the awful way China treats its citizens, makes fun of its censorship laws, and heavily features a banned character in it. So, is it any surprise that it was banned in China? No. No, it's not. But things went even further. The episode was ultimately responsible for South Park being entirely scrubbed from the country. Seriously, online, every mention of the series was removed. Episodes were taken down, forums were closed, and social media posts were hidden. Such a draconian response is par for the course in China's heavily controlled society, though. So frankly, it's surprising South Park survived there as long as it did. Bad. The Simpsons is the longest-running animated series
It
of all
is.
time, and as such, has been no stranger to controversy. But one episode of the hit sitcom was entirely unproblematic the day it aired in 1991, only to be banned outright later, in 2019. The episode is called Stark Raving Dad. So, what's the sitch? Well, in it, Homer gets sent to a mental institution where he meets Leon Kompowski, a man who believes he's the king of pop, Michael Jackson. Hilarity ensues, and to make the scene funnier, Leon was actually voiced by Jackson.
No way.
Surprise.
I didn't know that.
Very popular entertainer. Well, of course I
I've heard of you. I mean, you'd have to be living under a rock not to know. What'd you say your name was?
Michael Jackson.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Well, have you heard of MTV?
Nope.
Motown.
No.
Beat It.
You beat it.
The episode was actually one of the
Okay.
more popular ones, but in 2019, everything changed.
I did not know that.
The documentary Leaving Neverland was released, which took a supremely critical view of MJ and reignited some nasty allegations. If you know, you know. After watching the doc, the brains behind The Simpsons opted to completely remove Stark Raving Dad from circulation. It was omitted from Disney Plus, axed from all the box sets going forward, and
Sorry,
pulled
y'all,
from
I keep
rerun
banging the mic
schedules
by accident.
indefinitely.
Pause.
It seems like a cut and dry business decision to avoid association with controversy, but there may well have been something more to it. After finishing the documentary, Simpsons showrunner Al Jean came to the belief that Jackson used his appearance on the show as a tool to groom victims. There's no outright proof of this, but Jean's steadfast belief meant he stands by the decision to erase the episode from existence, a decision which proved almost as controversial as the original Jacko controversy. The beloved episode's banishment was bemoaned by fans, with some viewing it as totally unnecessary. Others expressed the importance of preserving media as a form of history, rather than erasing it. Then again, if Gene was onto something, then maybe it was the right choice to jettison Jackson's episode. It's all so complicated. If we were discussing whether we should ban any modern Simpsons episodes, I'm sure we'd all be in agreement. All of them. Teenage Mutant Ninja Trauma. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is awesome. Its kick-butt action and dynamite storytelling have improved many a childhood, although it nearly ruined a fair few too. See, the 2003 version of the show featured an episode called Insane in the Membrane. The episode follows an injured villain named Stockman, who clones himself a new body to inhabit. Only things go horribly wrong when it begins to rapidly decay, both physically and mentally. What follows is a horror movie-esque nightmare where the rotting madman rampages around the city, attempting to destroy the Turtles' ally, April O'Neil, all while hallucinating his dearly departed mother.
You were such a good boy. You had so much potential. What happened to you, baby doll?
That's not just terrifying, but also pretty heartbreaking. When the staff at Fox Broadcast Standards and Practices looked at the finished episode, they were apparently horrified at what they saw. The gruesome subject matter and scary visuals led them to lock the episode away from children's eyes. I gotta say, I might agree with them on this one. Kids are impressionable, and seeing some of the disturbing stuff on display here could easily cause some sleepless nights. That said, the episode was released in the UK and appeared on the US DVD release too. It wouldn't be aired on American TV until 2015 though. There's no word on what exactly caused Fox to change their minds or how many kids were upset after watching it, but it would have taken me a long time to recover. Beer babies. If you're a living fossil, you might remember the public service announcements from the 1980s kids cartoons. For everyone else, they were short sections aired after an episode to heavy-handedly explain the morals of the story.
We'll tell her we did it.
Remember, it's better to tell the truth.
And that's no lie. Now we know.
And knowing is half the battle.
And knowing is half the battle. I used to watch G.I.
Cool. By the 90s, they'd largely gone out of style, with one infamous exception. 1991's Tiny Toons Adventures episode, Elephant Issues. Rather than a normal episode with a PSA at the end, the WB network decided to make the whole episode the PSA, to disastrous effect. Elephant Issues is composed of 3 segments, with one in particular, One Beer, really catching the ire of the censors. Can you guess why? That's right, One Beer is all about booze.
You mean that's beer?
Wow, I think you can see where this is going. The idea was, by showing everyone's beloved childhood characters getting absolutely off their faces, it would demonstrate the evils of alcohol to kids. So after arguing who should drink first, it's finally settled on Buster.
All right. Bottoms up.
Not bottoms up.
Given that the characters in the show are all kids themselves, you can clearly see the issue here.
Yeah.
Anyway, after they all down the brew, this happens.
That's not a very good
Driving 5 o'clock shadow, that's crazy.
Yep, they drunkenly steal a police car, drive it off a cliff, and, put it this way, aren't seen driving it.
Wow.
What? The shocking and upsetting content of the segment caused the whole episode to be removed from syndication in the US, and it's since gone down as one of the most well-known banned cartoons ever. Or at least that's what people say.
Tiny Toon Adventures
Turns
was
out,
wild, though.
this is a job for
Animaniacs was wild, too.
Buzzkill Man. I'm sorry, but this story is nowhere near as dramatic as people believe, because guess what? The episode was never actually banned at all. What? YouTuber Paparina did some serious sleuthing and not only uncovered a commercial for the episode, but also several TV guide listings up until 1997, a full 6 years after its
They
first
secretly kept it on
broadcast.
air. That's
So what
crazy.
gives? Well, the evidence says it all. We can't be sure when or why, but someone made the whole drama up and it spread online like wildfire. Well, that's disappointing. Thanks a lot, Buzzkill Man. Regardless, I think this episode did do its job. After watching it, I'm going teetotal. Totally inappropriate. Rocco's Modern Life is one of Nickelodeon's all-time greats.
Yeah.
One of the reasons for its massive popularity is its penchant for
Big
adult
Pop for
humor,
cooking children.
something that would get its creators in serious trouble back in
Big heads.
1993. Enter Leapfrogs, an episode where main character Australian wallaby Rocco is seduced by his married neighbor.
Yoo-hoo, Rocco. Could you come upstairs for a moment, please,
No.
dear?
And he goes. Wow.
Would you zip me up, darling?
Okay. Essentially, his neighbor, the toad Bev Bighead, feels neglected by her husband, and so sets her eyes on Rocco. What follows is a series of incredibly awkward sequences where she makes Rocco and us super uncomfortable.
Oh boy, documentary. Yes, why don't you join me?
No. So straight away, this is some pretty edgy content for children.
Yeah.
So much so that parents went ballistic after catching their kids watching it. In fact, the episode drew so many complaints that Nick pulled it from air entirely. Given the premise, I kinda understand the parents' objections. Heck, maybe it did deserve the axe. I don't know how much of the adult stuff kids would understand though, so I'm not sure I agree. What do you think? Did this episode need to be banned, or were people too sensitive?
Kids understand
Let
way
me know
more than
down in
people
the
think.
comments.
When I was a kid, everything
Okay,
my parents thought I didn't understand, I totally understood.
Once more, we venture into the world
And I was
of
7.
Pokemon. Once more, we're in for something decidedly less kid-friendly than parents expected. 1997's The Legend of Dratini follows Ash and pals as they enter the Safari Zone, a massive Pokemon preserve. What follows sounds like standard Pokemon fare. The gang catch a bunch of monsters, face off against the dastardly Team Rocket, and ultimately save the titular Dratini from their clutches. But wait, what's so egregious about that? Well, this episode has guns in it. A lot of guns. Now, guns do feature in other Pokemon episodes, but fleetingly, or in a very over-the-top fashion. But in this episode, characters are threatened at gunpoint on 7 different occasions. Too many for them to all be censored in a global release. Heck, at one point, Ash even gets a revolver pointed directly in his face. That's right. Perhaps unsurprisingly, The Legend of Dratini never got an English dub and was never released outside of Japan. However, this created a pretty big plot hole for global viewers. See, Ash captures 30 Tauros in the Safari Zone, so when he visits them all in a later episode, it left a lot of kids confused about where the heck they'd come from. What's more, the unaired episode was the anime debut of Dratini, and because of its removal, people outside of Japan wouldn't get to see the creature in the show for another 200 plus episodes. Fortunately, no one aims an AR-15 at anyone when Dratini does show back up. Nice. Creepy crabs. Some cartoon episodes were perfectly fine when they were released, only to be hit with a ban decades later. Enter the 2002 SpongeBob SquarePants episode, Midlife Crustacean. In it, Mr. Krabs feels his age and is desperate to recapture his youth. So he tags along with SpongeBob and Patrick on their
the
big
panty
night
raid.
out. It turns out to be a disappointing affair, though, until he hears about the last activity they have planned.
I guess you're gonna miss the panty raid.
The what? You're talking about girls, right? Girls?
Yeah.
And you're talking about raiding their dressers for their underpants, right?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. So, sure enough, they sneak into a girl's house to steal her underwear.
Only to find out it's his
discover
mom.
that the girl is Mr. Krabs' mom. Just when you thought it couldn't get any weirder, for decades the episode aired in the US
It's a
until
funny episode.
2021, when Nickelodeon announced they'd made the decision to pull it from broadcast, as well as streaming services in the country. The network cited storyline concerns as the reason, but never elaborated. But come on, we all know what the issue was. Why the heck do SpongeBob and Patrick want to steal girls' underwear? It's totally out of character for these two goofy goobers to even consider something like that. So I can understand Nick's thought process in ultimately choosing to can it. Having said that, the show's had way more adult jokes in different episodes.
Yep. SpongeBob watching porn. And getting caught by Gary.
Yep, that went straight over Little Amazed's head the first time I watched it. Regardless of what I think, Midlife Crustacean is still banned in the US today. Does this whole episode really deserve a ban? Or is the controversy just a load of... New York, New York. We're heading back to the town of Springfield now, but not for long, because our favorite cartoon family are off to New York. In the 1997 episode, The City of New York versus Homer Simpson, the family must travel to the Big Apple to retrieve the family car. But after the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center, the episode was pulled from air. See, the car is abandoned outside the Twin Towers, so a huge portion of the runtime takes place there. After the tragedy, the decision was made to take it from syndication, for obvious reasons. The ban was eventually lifted in 2006, although reruns would still occasionally have some content removed. Notably, a joke in the episode that, quote, they stick all the jerks in Tower 1 has been sporadically cut in certain regions. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Bans and edits like this one were commonplace in the years following the devastating attacks. Oh, one more thing about the episode. It's commonly cited as predicting the attacks themselves, with this travel ad that appears to read 9/11. It didn't. $9 was chosen as the price because it was ridiculously cheap, and the Twin Towers were simply shown to advertise the city's landmarks. There, enjoy a little bonus from Buzzkill Man. Terror Tubbies. Okay,
Yeah,
so
Teletubbies
these
were wild.
next two aren't technically cartoons, but they're so wild I had to include them. The BBC Kids show Teletubbies is a surreal jaunt through a psychedelic world with the titular Tubbies. Episodes featured so-called magical events, but in 1997's Seesaw, the magical event proved so terrifying it led to the episode's ban. Enter The Lion and the Bear. The episode starts as normal, then suddenly this happens.
I'm the bear, and I'm coming.
And things only get more unsettling. Ugh. The thing is utterly freaky for reasons I'm not entirely sure of.
It's giving
But
Five
what it
Nights
was
at
hiding
Freddy's.
From gives me the heebie-jeebies even more.
I'm the scary lion with big, scary teeth.
It's even more uncanny than the bear. Then the lion gives chase. It just feels wrong. And that's probably the best way to describe the entire sequence. The stressful music, the uncanny wooden cutouts, they just don't belong in Teletubbies. Parents complained ad nauseum until the BBC pulled the episode, but the damage was already done. I know I had recurring nightmares of these SCP-looking terrors anyway. Then, a few years later, an edited version of the sequence was aired on TV. This version had altered vocal performance, cut shots, and added artificial sound effects like squeaking wheels to tone down the uncanniness.
Where's the bear? Where's the bear?
It's, a bit better, but I still never want to see one of those two knuckleheads ever again. If I just triggered your PTSD, let me know down in the comments. We can comfort each other. Newtmares. As spine-chilling as the wooden terrors from the Teletubbies are, there's another kid's show that gave me even worse nightmares. Pingu. Yes, the show about the little penguin. In the 1991 episode Pingu's Dream, we follow Pingu on a trip to Snoozeville. His dream starts off innocently enough with him riding his bed around a barren landscape. He's having a great time, and so are we, until, well...
Oh, shit. That thing looks hideous. Don't seals eat penguins? No, they eat fish.
This thing is supposed to be a walrus. Only it's huge, has no tusks, and sports an unnerving set of
That's why I thought it was a seal.
teeth. It torments Pingu and laughs maniacally at his suffering. Do I even need to tell you the problem with this episode? The walrus was deemed far too chilling for kids' TV, and the ep was banned in several countries, including the UK. Good frickin' riddance. But if you thought that was the only controversial part of Pingu, oh boy, you've seen nothing yet. There's actually a whole slew of banned or censored episodes from the show. Probably the most outrageous is Little Accidents, a 1990 story about Pingu and friends, going to the bathroom. Yeah, it's as weird as it sounds. Essentially, after Pingu drinks way too much, he desperately needs to pee, but shock horror, he can't reach the toilet. With no other option, our penguin pal does the unthinkable.
Wow.
Jeez. From the color of that, Pingu still needs to drink more water.
Yeah, way
the
more water.
The focus on all that urine caused the episode to be banned.
Urine should be a
heap of
straw
countries,
yellow color.
including the USA.
Very light
Trust me,
yellow,
the craziest thing
see-through,
is someone's
clear,
actual job
no
was to
odor.
create and animate Pingu doing a
And I
massive
only know that because I
recon
studied to be a
play.
medical assistant.
For shame.
And I had
And
to
on that particularly
be the person to
smelly
collect
note,
people's
I've had just
urine
about enough of these
samples.
banned cartoons.
And as a medical
Have you
assistant,
ever seen any of these
you gotta
episodes?
look at it,
Which of them blew
you
your
gotta smell
mind
it.
most? Let me know down in the comments.
not like in a
the next
creepy way,
video.
but just to make
Thanks
sure
for
that
watching.
it doesn't smell sweet or anything like that, because that could be indicative of an underlying issue, medical issue. But we were taught to know how urine is supposed to look and smell in order to pinpoint certain diseases, see if people are healthy or not, etc., etc. But yeah. Let's see what else we got. I've seen that one already. When Karma Comes for Awful People, Part 9. Yeah.
You know, people call me the strongest fighter in the province, but there's one foe I could never defeat. Karma. Yep, no matter who you are, if you've done something terrible, I
It comes
guarantee
back.
you'll get your just
Yeah.
desserts. And the rest of us will be watching and laughing. From animal avengers to some particularly stinky comeuppances, here's a whole heap of times that karma came for awful people. Chipotle chump.
If
I've
y'all are
never
enjoying
really
this, make
liked
sure you go drop a
Chipotle.
follow and
It's much too
subscribe
spicy
to their
for me.
channel.
But sometimes
They post
it's
really
not
cool
just the
content.
food that's fiery. Back in September 2023, Rosemary Hain rocked up to a Chipotle restaurant in Parma, Ohio, looking for some grub.
Of course
A member
it's
of the
Ohio.
staff named Emily Russell happily served her, but Hain wasn't so happy. For some reason, she didn't like the way her order had been prepared. Eager to help her customer, Emily had the order remade. Hain still moaned. So Emily remade it again, but apparently it still wasn't good enough. What? Emily knew the order was fine, and it was a standard serving of exactly what she'd asked for, but Hain lost it. She started screaming, shouting, and swearing at poor Emily. Ah yes, the 3 S's, a Karen's greatest weapon. Emily tried her best to defuse the situation, handing her a business card and giving her the opportunity to contact someone higher up in the company to complain. But this wasn't good enough for Hain. Oh no. Instead of being reasonable about the situation, she picked up the bowl of hot food and slapped Emily right in the face with it.
That's a fight.
Jeez, what a nut
Throw
job.
them hands.
Luckily, the
We
whole
gotta fight
ordeal
now.
was caught on camera, and the cops quickly got to work looking for the fast food fiend.
We gotta fight.
It didn't take long before
You're not
she was
leaving that
facing
store
down
without
a
seeing
judge
me.
in court.
You're
Hain
gonna have to
was
shoot
given
me
a
one, lady.
choice. 3 months in jail or 1 month in jail and 2 months of work in a fast food
She'd
restaurant.
have got a free ass whooping that day.
She chose the latter, and I can only hope she had a wonderful time dealing with lovely members of the public, just like herself. Brat Splat. Some parents refuse to do any actual parenting. Their precious little angels can do no wrong, and how dare you even imply they're not raising them right? You know, just the kind of person I'm talking about. Reddit user Dr. Strangelove GA used to work in a cell phone store where he met one in the wild. See, he was standing behind the counter serving a long line of customers, only not all of them were waiting patiently. One of the women in line had brought her gremlin of a child, and he
Not
was
gremlin
running
of a child.
rampant. The kid was darting around the store, knocking things over, and generally being a huge pain in the behind. Irritated, Strangelove asked the child's mother to control him and warned that he could easily get himself hurt. Sounds reasonable, but not to Supermom. He had to ask several times before she even acknowledged him, and when she finally did, she was furious. The mother immediately started loudly cursing and berating
So he gets it from his mom.
angrily demanding that he never tell her how to raise her own son again. But halfway through her tirade, a massive donk stopped her dead in her tracks. Her son had just run into a heavy, low-hanging sign and knocked himself out cold. Wow. Hey, don't worry, the kid turned out fine. But rather than relieved, the mom was still furious and threatened to sue the store. That is until our hero pointed out that the whole thing had been
Caught on
recorded
camera.
on CCTV. The boy running wild without a second glance from his negligent mother, Strangelove warning her multiple times to no avail. Yeah, she soon clammed up and slinked away, never to return.
Of course.
And good riddance. Please, if you have kids, don't be like that douchebag.
Right.
Raise them right. Like by watching my vids together. Go on, hit those like and subscribe buttons and feed your brains with a whole load of awesome real-life stories like these. If you don't, you might get some karmic comeuppance of your own. Whiplash. People who try to hurt animals deserve everything they get. I mean, how could anybody think of harming a sweet little doggo or catto? Well, never
Not
fear.
doggo or catto.
Karma is here. Reddit user Other Account recalled a memory from their childhood ranch. See, the family kept horses, and so had a lunge whip for training them. Other Act's little brother was messing around with the whip one day, dragging it around so the cats chased it. Nothing wrong with that, right? But he must have gotten bored with this, because suddenly he started loudly cracking the whip right next to the little felines. Terrified, they scattered. Other Act was rightfully mad and told their brother off. He could easily have hurt the poor cats. But he just looked Other Act dead in the eye and murmured, "I do what I want." Well, kid must have thought he was in a Clint Eastwood movie or something. Whatever he thought, he was wrong. Next time he went to crack the whip, it snapped back and hit him smack bang in the doodah.
Oh, yeah.
Oof. Other Ack was crying with laughter.
Yeah.
Their brother, for very different reasons. A stinky attitude. Some people need to learn how to control their anger. Otherwise, there can be disgusting consequences. Back in 2016, a man called Cooper was checking into an airport hotel. Everything was going smoothly until a mega Karen stomped her way towards the desk.
Not a mega Karen.
Uh-oh. Apparently, there was a major problem. This Karen only had a normal kettle in her room. Oh, humanity. She started to scream and shout at the girl serving Cooper, moaning that her room wasn't up to standard and that she'd been traveling all day. The poor girl looked like she was about to cry. Well, Cooper wasn't about to stand for that. He clapped back at the Karen, telling her everybody had been traveling and that she should get lost. Suddenly, something inside the Karen snapped. A raging storm brewed within her, something powerful, almost otherworldly. She slammed her fist on the desk and demanded to see the manager.
The manager.
Wow, how unexpected. But you see, she got herself so worked up that she had a violent coughing fit. And that raging storm inside her, it wasn't just anger. She coughed so hard that right there in front of everyone,
farted.
She exploded from her rear end.
No.
While wearing beige pants. Red-faced, the embarrassed woman promptly shut up and slunk away. As for Cooper and the girl who'd been shouted at, it was all laughs after the terrible smell.
Oh my goodness.
Horsing around. Unless I'm your hero, the people we look up to most can turn out to be total disappointments. Reddit user Potato Sunday saw this firsthand. While at a show jumping event, they watched.
It's no surprise that all of these are coming from
one of the
Reddit.
competitors. She was holding a book of famous horse riders and wanted the jumper to sign it for her. But as she flicked through it, she couldn't find the page with him on it. So she politely asked if he could help her. His response, "Find it yourself." And with that, he stormed off, leaving the little girl visibly upset. Fast forward a little, and the jerkwad jumper had unfortunately made it to the finals of the competition with a whopping $100,000 up for grabs. Just as his horse approached its first jump, however, something completely unexpected happened. It abruptly stopped mid-gallop, throwing the shocked jockey through the air and flat on his face. Despite being embarrassed and incredibly annoyed, the fellow was physically fine. But missing out on that $100,000 would have hurt a lot more than any bruise. Goal. Being obnoxious, bratty, and mean is never a good thing. But usually they're traits reserved for kids who don't know better. Usually, but not always. When Reddit user BoxDupe was just 7 years old, he played Little League Soccer. It was a lighthearted hobby that none of the kids took too seriously. But the parents? Well, one of them proved she had the emotional maturity of a goldfish. Indeed, the snooty soccer mom would constantly make rude remarks whenever BoxDupe was benched in games. Things like, "How about putting in some effort next time?" Or, "That's what happens when you don't watch the ball." Now bear in mind, this is a woman in her 40s talking to a 7-year-old that wasn't even her kid. And what's more, she spoke quietly enough that only BoxDupe could hear her. It sucked, but he never said anything out of fear that he'd be called a wuss. Well, one day, Box had been benched and was quietly watching the game from the sidelines. As usual, you know who had something scathing to say about this. But then, suddenly, a rogue kick sent the ball flying toward the stands. Everyone's eyes followed it as it soared through the air until with a mighty thud, it slammed, bam, straight into the rude soccer mom's face. Crikey. 2 lost teeth later, and she never turned up to another soccer game again. I guess you could say, that's what happens when you don't watch the ball.
Period.
Tractor trouble. Thieves. Some of them are undeniable geniuses. Others, however, are complete and utter doofuses. One night in September 2023, a tractor showroom in India caught the latter on its CCTV cameras. He'd snuck into the lot and attempted to make off with one of the tractors, and at first it looked like he was going to be successful. The villain managed to get the vehicle moving, but he wasn't prepared for just how fast it would go. Yeah, the bumbling bad guy ended up getting his feet caught under one of the rear wheels and was completely run over as the tractor rolled forward.
That sucks.
Ouch. That had to hurt. Somehow he picked himself up, limped to the vehicle, and drove it away, but he didn't get very far. The tractor was found a few days later, just a short walk from the showroom. As for the man himself, unfortunately he was never caught. But hey, at least he got a bruised spine to match that bruised ego. Them. Prepare yourself for a karmic tale with more twists and turns than an ornery rattlesnake. When Reddit user Ratney was 9 years old, her parents decided to take her and her sister on a trip to Disney World.
I love Disney.
Sorry. So the family grabbed themselves a
Appropriate
rental car
reaction.
and headed down to the Sunshine State, Florida. They even got takeout for breakfast, so it was basically the best day ever. Not that they ate it all. They were too excited. When they arrived, they left their half-eaten brekkie behind and leapt out of the car, ready to explore the park. And for the next 10 days, they had the greatest time of their lives. I'm not jealous. You're jealous. Anyway, when it was all over, they returned to their rental car and were shocked swiftly back to reality. Ants on a scale you've never seen before. They were crawling everywhere, all over the seats, out of the air vents, up the windows. It was awful. But most of all, piles upon piles of them were writhing around on what remained of the kids' 10-day-old pancakes. So that was the reason.
Y'all didn't use your rental
needed
car
to be
for 10
returned to
days?
the lot that day, but they only had a crummy portable vacuum to try and get rid of them. 20 minutes of desperate vacuuming later, and though piles of the insects had diminished, there was still a horrific amount scuttling around. There was no choice. The family squeamishly jumped in the car, dashed to the rental place, and prepared to grovel. When the dad stepped inside, however, there was a woman screeching at the employee behind the desk. Apparently, she really needed a mid-sized car, and it was out of order that the lot didn't have one. The torrent of verbal abuse got nastier and nastier until suddenly the dad realized that the car he'd been using would be perfect for her. So he held up his keys, the woman's eyes lit up, practically salivating. She demanded he hand them over. The employee tried to point out that it might need a clean first, but the she-beast wasn't having it. Apparently,
She-beast?
she didn't care if it was clean. And just like that, she snatched the keys, ran to the car, and took off. Well, something tells me she did end up caring when she realized her precious mid-sized car was absolutely infested with hungry ants. I like to think she was carried off back to their nest. Monkey mayhem. Don't mess with monkey. Monkey strong. Monkey fast. Something one little brat found out all too well. Over in Bali, Indonesia, there's a magical place called Ubud Monkey Forest, a sanctuary housing over 1,260 long-tailed macaques. Redditor Tardigrades was visiting for the day, watching the majestic creatures respectfully with other tourists. Only not everyone was showing such reverence. One irritated little boy started poking one of them with a stick, clearly enjoying terrorizing the poor monkey. And for a short time, it looked like the macaque was going to let it happen. But then the little brat gave it a particularly vicious prod, and it was immediately obvious he'd gone too far. In the blink of an eye, Curious George became Cantankerous George and snapped. The macaque leapt at the kid, who span around in a panic and tried to escape, but he didn't get far. The monkey grabbed his pants and, with a tremendous tug, pulled them straight down to his ankles. With a satisfying smack, the kid hit the deck as everyone watched and smirked. Monkey strong, monkey fast, monkey will show off your ass. The Wet Bandit. Urinals are awkward at the best of times, but aptly named Reddit user, Always Bring a Towel, recalled a story from his school days that put my awkward encounters to shame. Towel was stood at the urinal taking a whiz by another kid when suddenly he saw something out of his peripheral vision. An older kid that was a known bully had crept into the bathroom behind them and was reaching over into the other kid's pocket. What? Towel realized he was pulling out his wallet. Well, this turned out to be a big mistake. Just as the bully thought he'd gotten away with it, the kid felt something and reflexively whipped around to see what was going on. Except he didn't stop peeing. Towel watched on in transfixed amusement as the kid's golden stream was propelled slop bang into the bully's horrified face. Coughing and sputtering, the older kid dropped the wallet and ran away in abject humiliation. I guess now we know why our guy's Reddit username is always bring a towel. The peeing party goer. So we've had a karma-rific pee-related tale about kids. How about an even more karma-rific pee-related tale involving adults? I know, only the most highbrow content on my channel. Partygoer Kara Johnson was at a nightclub in Barcelona with some friends back in July 2017. The group booked a VIP table and were sat chatting with a few drinks. Nothing could spoil the evening, right? Well, suddenly an absolutely wasted girl stumbled out from the crowd towards their table, picked up an empty cup, and turned away from them with it. Turning away wasn't enough to hide what she was clearly doing, though. In horror, Kira and her friends watched as the girl began peeing straight into it, right there, in the middle of the club. Blah, 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 blah. To make matters worse, when she was finally finished, she leaned over and placed the now urine-filled cup on Kara's VIP table, right next to some other drinks, and began to stumble away again. What? But one of her friends wasn't having it.
Hands,
In a dash of divine inspiration, she picked up the pee cup, aimed just right, and threw it all over the drunk girl's back. Wow. Most incredibly of all, the girl was so out of it, she didn't even react to having her own warm pee thrown all over her. Man, alcohol really does turn people into cavemen, huh? The Karma Llama. I've loved llamas ever since watching The Emperor's New Groove, so I'm immediately sus of anyone who doesn't. Well, American zookeeper Catherine met just such a person. See, Catherine was near the llama enclosure when she saw a horrid woman stomp up to one of the llamas, point at it, and make fun of how ugly it was.
Oh, wow.
Now, this llama had actually been rescued from a terrible situation and had undergone corrective jaw surgery.
Okay.
So naturally, it looked a little different to the others. The rude lady took one look at the recovering animal, however, and thought it was hilarious, charming. Catherine was livid. How dare she make fun of her furry friend? Before she could intervene, though, the rescue llama took vengeance into its own hands by spitting directly into the laughing lady's open mouth. While the horrible woman gagged and flailed in horror, Catherine quietly gave her llama a treat and told her that she was a good girl. I salute you, rescue llama. Joyriding. Our next tale of karmic comeuppance comes from the sunny streets of England. Reddit user JC Grimshaw lived on a street that had just had some new speed bumps installed to deter joyriders. Problem is, they didn't work. Whoever the culprits were, they were only encouraged to joyride more because, well, they were idiots. Sure enough, Grimshaw came home from school one day to find one of them zipping around dangerously on a dirt bike. Then the hooligan started speeding towards an oncoming car, clearly trying to intimidate the driver. Only he hit the throttle too hard and wound up mounting the car's hood, launching it into the sky, and landing with a crash on the windscreen. Jeez. Panicked, the shamed biker tried to run away, but fell straight on his ass. He must have broken something. Oh, karma, you sly dog, you. But that wasn't all. You might be wondering about the driver of the car. Don't worry, he was fine. But in fact, in a wild twist, he was an undercover cop. Damn. So, hysterically, the hooligan found himself nearly instantly locked in cuffs and taken away. A double dose of karmic medicine. Rainforest Wrath. I love the Rainforest Cafe.
Me too.
If you've never been to one, their restaurant's themed like, you guessed it, a rainforest. You've got plants, animatronic gorillas, and in Galveston, Texas, even a river raft ride. Predator Migzors worked there, operating said ride, when one fateful day, a family of 5 rather large people approached. Migzors politely explained that they could have a go, but there was a strict weight limit on the ride, so they'd need to separate into different groups. Well, they weren't happy about that. One particularly big woman took extreme offense and accused Migzors of calling her fat. She started berating the operator and her colleagues, demanding that the group be allowed to ride together. So, sick of the abuse, Migzors relented. If they wanted to ride together, let them have at it. The family smugly clambered into the raft and the ride began. Right away, some water poured in, but they were still floating, for now. As Migzors watched the group on the security cameras, however, she noticed with satisfaction that they were slowly but surely sinking. Who would have guessed? And it wasn't long before they noticed too. Our hero watched on as the raft sunk lower and lower until suddenly, swoosh, water came pouring in like a tsunami. The whole family started screaming as the vessel took a nosedive and they were plunged into the cold river below. Migzors finally stopped the ride and went over to check on them. Well, it's safe to say they weren't mouthing off anymore. The soaking wet, humiliated riders had to be helped out of the water and were forced to do the walk of shame past an amused
Rules are
group of
rules.
customers. Well, they were warned.
They were warned.
Ain't the sharpest tools. I've worked in retail. Trust me, it destroys your faith in humanity. Take this tale from Reddit user Outaspec. While he was working at a home improvement store, 2 obnoxious fellas walked in and demanded a tool that he'd never heard of before. Now, Spec was a department head in this store, so if he'd never heard of it, it probably didn't exist. But on the off chance, he Googled it anyway. Sure enough, his suspicions were confirmed. It wasn't real. So Spec politely delivered the bad news. Now, what do you reckon the response was? A normal person would either describe what they were looking for in more detail, or thank the server and leave. Well, not these knuckleheads. Instead, one of them snapped, "See, I told you these idiots don't know what they're doing." But Spec wasn't going to just stand there and take it. He simply smiled and glanced at his computer. Then he told them that actually they were in luck. Another store 2 cities over had one right now that they could go and pick up. But they'd have to be fast about it, so the 2 jerks hurriedly ran off. An hour and a half later, the store phone started ringing. Spec grabbed the receiver and, sure enough, it was the 2 bozos again. Immediately, they started spitting vitriol about how they'd traveled all the way to the second store, only to find out the tool they'd promised wasn't there. Then they gave a description of Spec, without realizing they were talking to him, of course. Spec promised that the department head would thoroughly reprimand the employee. Then he hung up, smiled, and took a long lunch. The only tools they'd ever see would be the ones in the mirror. Don't skip leg day. Reddit user Velvet Seahorse used to work in the ER of a hospital. One evening, an injured woman was brought in after a stranger attacked her in the street. The scumbag had jumped the woman and tried to drag her off, but was thankfully chased away by a good Samaritan who'd called the authorities. Whew, that could have been a lot worse. And it would be for the scumbag. Around 20 minutes later, someone else was brought into the ER in full cardiac arrest. Any guesses who? Yeah, it was the guy who jumped the woman. Turns out the cops had quickly tracked him down and had given chase. But it seems he should have done more cardio. Having to sprint several blocks for his freedom caused his heart to give out. In the most extreme case of got what he deserved we've seen yet, the creep passed away almost as soon as he was dragged into the ER. Oh, boo-hoo. Let me play a sad song on the world's smallest violin.
That's diabolical.
And on that final tale of karmic balance, I've just about had my fill, at least for now. If you have any stories of karma's sweet sting, let me know down in the comments. Who knows, you could make it into the next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.
Let's do this one.
From magical wildlife and peculiar natural phenomena to the areas where practicing witchcraft on the waves is encouraged, Canada boasts a huge amount of wonderful oddities, and each one coming up is weirder than the last.
I love how it moves, just bouncy
Picture this.
pouncy.
You're strolling down a Canadian street minding your own business when suddenly, ouch, A stranger accidentally steps on your foot. Naturally, they apologize right away. But hold up. According to Canadian cultural etiquette, you're expected to apologize too. Canadians are famously polite, and nothing captures that better than their signature sorry. Apologies in Canada are almost constant and expected, even for the smallest and most insignificant infractions.
Sorry.
From voicing a minor complaint to requesting a small favor, even when it's someone's job to assist the apologizer. You're likely familiar with the famous Canadian sorry, but what you might not know is that in the land of Maple, the word is used so frequently that the government had to take legal action. You see, in most places around the world, apologies are seen as an admission of guilt or liability, but in Canada, sorry isn't as simple as that. While studies show the average American apologizes just a few times a day, the typical Canadian is thought to say sorry over 9 times every day.
Dang.
Many Canadians describe their chronic sorriness as more of an acknowledgement that something happened, like bumping into someone. It's not about blame, but about showing respect and recognizing the other person exists. Ignoring it or not saying anything would seem rude, so whether you say sorry or you okay, in Canada, it counts as the same thing. So in 2006, the province of British Columbia introduced a piece of legislation known as the Apology Act. The act makes the distinction that in context of the law, an apology is simply a display of commiseration and not an admission of fault in an altercation. The act ensures that those frequent apologies aren't misinterpreted as admissions of liability in legal situations, allowing Canadians to uphold their cultural norm of apologizing without fear of their words being used against them in court. Today, almost all Canadian provinces have their own versions of the act. While vaguely similar laws exist in countries like the US and Australia, it's clear that for Canadians, this legal protection is especially essential. But it's not just the people of Canada that are full of apologies. Their transport services are a sorry state of affairs too. While on first glance it looks as though this bus is apologizing for the part it's played in this traffic collision, the text is actually a part of Winnipeg Transit not-in-service message for buses. Even so, compared to other countries like the UK, Canada's buses seem to be some of the only ones to remember their manners. From TransLink buses in Vancouver to the Toronto Transit Commission, it seems the quintessentially Canadian apology will continue to roll on and on. Sorry, not sorry. When they're not busy being polite, Canadians seemingly love building some of the world's weirdest attractions. Like in Drumheller, Alberta, home of the world's largest dinosaur. This towering fiberglass and steel Tyrannosaurus Rex stands a whopping 86 feet tall, around 4 times the size of a real T-Rex. You can actually climb inside it and peek out through its mouth, which is probably not something you could do with a real T-Rex. Over in St. Paul, Alberta, meanwhile, you'll find the world's first UFO landing pad. Built in 1967 as a symbol of peace and cosmic unity, this quirky monument was unveiled to welcome all extraterrestrial visitors with open arms, offering them a place to land, taking Canadian friendliness interstellar. But arguably, Canada's strangest attractions are actually all natural. Take the Spotted Lake in British Columbia, which transforms in the summer as the water evaporates, revealing hundreds of colorful pools. Each pool's unique mix and concentration of minerals results in a distinct hue, creating a sight unlike anywhere else on Earth. Then there's the Smoking Hills in Canada's Northwestern Territories. Here, layers and layers of underground oil shales naturally ignite and have been burning for centuries, with the sulfur-rich ground resulting in strange red deposits perpetually veiled in smoke. So whether it's natural thrills or man-made curiosities you seek, Canada's got you covered. It's no secret that many fast food chains around the world can often be found tweaking their menus to cater to local tastes, and Canada is no exception. At the Golden Arches of Canadian McDonald's, you can order yourself a portion of McPoutine. That is the quintessentially Canadian delicacy of french fries and cheese curds topped with gravy, as well as a buffalo chicken variant in Quebec branches. Now that makes me wish I was Canadian. The McCanada menu has seen a whole host of country-exclusive items, including the McMini sandwich, the McLobster, as well as the McPizza.
McLobster?
Perhaps their strangest offering of all is their vegetarian options. In 2020, McDonald's Canada announced they'd be trialing a new vegetarian burger across its branches called the PLT. That is, plant, lettuce, and tomato. While McDonald's plant-based burgers have been a hit in other parts of the world like Texas and California, in Canada it didn't take off and was pulled from the menu after just 6 months. Thanks to the failure of the PLT, some Canadian McDonald's restaurants have come up with their own solution for the lack of options for veggie customers. They call this the no-meat Big Mac. Yep, your eyes aren't deceiving you. That's a Big Mac burger, but instead of meat patties, there's nothing. So the middle bread slice of a Big Mac becomes its patty. Shameful. Shockingly, this infamous bready binge can often be seen on self-ordering kiosks across the country. Well, vegetarians, I hope you like bread sandwiches. Banff National Park in Alberta is famous for its breathtaking landscapes, towering peaks, and the iconic Moraine Lake. But there's a lesser-known wonder that happens in this alpine lake every spring. Check it out.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Candle ice is a fascinating phenomenon seen in Banff's alpine lakes as they thaw in spring. The formation begins when the lake freezes with a process called supercooling, which allows large ice crystals to form. Then, when the spring sun begins to warm the ice, it starts to break down as water becomes trapped between the ice crystals. As the ice melts at the borders of these crystals, the thick ice sheet breaks into individual column sticks, hence the name, candle ice. Though visually captivating, candle ice is unstable and unsafe to walk on. However, gently breaking it apart from the safety of a boat or shoreline can be oddly satisfying. And for maximum satisfaction, you can even paddle through this strange icy phenomenon. Does anyone else really want a slushie now? While the candle ice of Banff's winter wonderland is a natural spectacle, there's another icy marvel in Canada that perfectly blends Mother Nature's magic with human engineering. When Prince Edward Island joined the Canadian Confederation in 1873, Canada's government promised to connect it to the mainland. Initially, this was done through ice boats and later ferries that carried mail and passengers across the Northumberland Strait until 1997 when the Confederation Bridge opened. Stretched across 8 miles, it's not just Canada's longest bridge, but also the world's longest bridge over ice-covered water. But its most fascinating feature? The ability to withstand the strait's harsh winter freeze. The bridge's 62 pillars are ingeniously designed with conical bases to handle incoming ice flows. As the ice drifts towards the bridge, the conical shape forces the flows upwards, the pressure of which causes them to crack into an array of rectangular chunks. This process, known as ice deflection, prevents large ice masses from piling up and threatening the structure. Instead, the bridge's piers slice through the ice, allowing it to be safely swept away by the tides and currents.
Smart.
It's a brilliant solution that keeps the bridge and the connection to Prince Edward Island safe, no matter how frigid conditions get. I guess you could say that even Canada's bridges know how to stay cool under pressure. That ability, of course, extends to Canada's citizens, whose ability to deftly deal with ice is as classically Canadian as Tim Hortons, both of which, incidentally, are encapsulated in the amazing clip you're about to see.
Morning, Hayden. Coffee for you.
Word.
Neighbor you are. Oh, we got the fireplace going. Yeah, I'll come in. Oh, I love what you've done with the place.
One of the country's most recognizable creatures, the mighty moose, may be a regular sighting for many Canadians. However, there are some moosey moments floating around online that are far from regular. Check this out.
Bro, he shook his antlers
You
off.
haven't seen that before. This head-shaking footage was captured by Canadian wildlife enthusiast Derek Burgoyne, who witnessed the rare moment a moose shed both its antlers at exactly the same time. As a species of deer, male moose, also known as bulls, shed and regrow their antlers throughout the years as part of their annual life cycle.
Okay.
For moose, antlers play a key role in attracting females who tend to favor bulls with bigger antlers. Guess you know what they say about big antlers, am I right? Anyway, as far as scientists know, antler casting is painless, mainly due to the lack of nerves and blood vessels in the fully developed antlers themselves. Many moose will often try to accelerate the process by rubbing their antlers up against tree trunks, or in this case, opting for a bit of headbanging. Rock on, moosey dude. Meanwhile, in Alberta, moose aren't just casting antlers, they're car washing?
Why are they licking the car?
This mysterious clip was captured when Mommy and Baby Moose got to work licking this car on its way through Jasper National Park while Daddy Moose stood guard. While we all know that Canada is home to some of the friendliest people on planet Earth, it's hard to believe that these moose would really clean a stranger's car for seemingly no reason. Well, unsurprisingly, there's actually an explanation to this carnal craving. Moose apparently are totally obsessed with salt as they need it for essential bodily functions. Problem is, their natural diet of leaves, twigs, and bark is low in sodium, leading them to seek out other salt sources like mineral licks as a nutritious supplement. However, in winter, when roads are salted to prevent freezing, moose have discovered that they can easily access salt from the wheels, doors, and bumpers of cars. This has led to potentially dangerous situations as more moose began approaching vehicles, even in traffic, to lick the salty residue. The issue became so widespread that Canadian officials had to install signs in areas where moose are commonly found, instructing drivers not to let moose lick their cars and to drive away if a moose approaches you. Forget horsing around, all I can see here is some extreme moosing around. I'll see myself out. The humble maple leaf in its tree has been an iconic symbol of Canada since the 19th century, valued for its sweet sap. Among the most cherished uses of this sap is the creation of maple taffy, a traditional and uniquely Canadian treat often referred to as sugar on snow. The origins of maple taffy trace back to indigenous peoples of North America who were the first to harvest sap from maple trees and transform it into syrup. French settlers later adopted this technique, turning it into a cultural tradition that endures to this day. In the past, maple taffy was a centerpiece of sugaring off parties, festive gatherings held in early spring when the sap began to flow. Making maple taffy was a highlight of these events, with the snow serving as a natural cooling agent to turn the syrup into taffy. First, the maple syrup is heated to reduce and thicken it, then it's poured over fresh snow where it quickly cools and thickens. Once hardened, it's then rolled onto a popsicle stick for a deliciously chewy experience, sweet by name and nature. If all that talk of maple syrup has your taste buds tingling, we're just getting started. In Canada, fans of soda, or pop as Canadian lingo dictates, can get their hands on bottles of Coca-Cola Quebec Maple that's been infused with syrup straight from La Belle Province. But it's not only maple-flavored Coke that's on offer. While it originated in Japan, you can even find clear Coke in Canada's largest Asian grocery store chain, T&T. But you know what would make a truly Canadian Coke? Clear Maple Coke. So if anyone from Coca-Cola's flavor department is watching, yes, please and thank you. If you're craving a more savory twist on maple sweetness, Canada has the perfect remedy for that too. While your favorite flavor potato chip is probably something like salt and vinegar or barbecue or sour cream and onion, some folks in Canada favor something a little more patriotically coded. In 2013, Lay's Canada released a new flavor called Maple Mousse after it came out as the winner of the Chips Brand's Do Us a Flavor contest. The flavor was created by Newfoundland native Tyler LaFrance, who won a 50,000 Canadian dollar grand prize after Canadians voted for his idea. The flavor was inspired by the bizarre but undeniably Canadian combo of maple and moose meat, and the chips are described as possessing a smoky taste with a hint of sweetness. Maple Mousse chips were sadly discontinued in early 2014 due to a lack of sales. However, there are plenty of other uniquely Canadian chip flavors still available nationwide. One of the most popular chip choices across Canada is ketchup flavor, which are also sold in the US but are nowhere near as sought after. And for those having a hard time deciding which flavor they favor, there's also Ruffles All-Dressed Chips, which is a combination of ketchup, barbecue, sour cream and onion, and salt and vinegar all rolled into one crunchy bite. But which of these Canadian treats have you salivating? Have you tried any yourself? Let me know in the comments below. While maple syrup is a cornerstone of Canadian culture, it's also at the heart of one of the country's most notorious crimes. In July 2012, accountant Michael Gavreau arrived at a warehouse owned by the Federation of Quebec Maple Syrup Producers in the small town of St. Louis de Blanford to take stock of the facility's barrels of syrup. Expecting each barrel to weigh over 600 pounds apiece, Michael was shocked to discover that many weren't filled with syrup at all, but instead plain old water. It turned out that over a period of 10 months, the contents of over 9,500 barrels of maple syrup worth 18 million Canadian dollars had been stolen in a crime that became known as the Great Canadian Maple Syrup Heist. The subsequent investigation involved nearly 300 interviews and even forensic analysis of syrup kettles and forklifts recovered from the scene. It was later revealed that the thieves had rented warehouse space and, over the course of a year, discreetly siphoned syrup while security was absent. Though police were able to recover around 2/3 of the stolen syrup, it seemed the rest had already disappeared into the sticky underworld, being repackaged and sold on. Police ultimately arrested 26 people in relation to the heist. Their ringleader, Richard Valers, was found guilty of theft, fraud, and trafficking stolen goods by Quebec Superior Court and sentenced to 8 years in prison. He also received a thick, syrupy fine of 9.4 million Canadian dollars. In the end, this sticky-fingered escapade left a very bitter taste in the mouths of its perpetrators. The US has football, Europe has soccer, but in Canada, it's always ice hockey time. Heck, even the guinea pigs over there can't resist a spin on the ice. And as if watching pets and players alike scramble across the ice wasn't entertaining enough, it's even more entertaining when things go wrong. In October 2014, Mark Donnelly confidently sang "O Canada" during a hockey game at the South Okanagan Event Center in Penticton, British Columbia. But mid-performance, Mr. O Canada missed a key detail. The red carpet spread across the ice.
Yikes. And kept singing.
Just a few lines in, Donnelly face-planted spectacularly and then scrambled to his feet, narrowly avoiding a second tumble as the crowd watched in stunned amusement. And just like that, Mark Donnelly proved that even the pros can hit a flat note. Literally. Big respect for pulling himself back up, though. Canada is known for its breathtaking landscapes and friendly people, but it also boasts a treasure trove of quirky slang that can leave outsiders scratching their heads. One popular term is 2-4, which refers to a case of 24 beers, an essential for any Canadian gathering or celebration. When someone mentions picking up a 2-4, you can bet a party is on the horizon. You also may find yourself being told to hang a Larry or hang a Roger, which respectively refer to making a left or right turn while driving. Then there's the humble bottle shop, which is a general term for a liquor store. Another charming term is Chesterfield, a vintage word for a couch. Finally, don't forget about loony, a term for the Canadian $1 coin, named after the common loon bird depicted on one side. So next time you're in Canada and someone asks you to hang a Larry around to the bottle shop to pick up a 2-4 for a few loonies for a hangout on the Chesterfield, you'll know that's a plan worth raising a glass to. So you walk into a grocery store in Ontario expecting to find your usual carton or jug of milk, but instead you're greeted by bizarre plastic sacks filled with loose liquid dairy. Welcome to the world of bagged milk, a phenomenon some say are as Canadian as maple syrup and hockey. Bagged milk is one of those quirks of Canadian life that leaves outsiders scratching their heads. So why the bags? Well, it all started back in the late 1960s when Canada was transitioning from the imperial to the metric measuring system, but this posed a problem for manufacturers. Resizing cartons or jugs required significant changes to production lines, making it a complex and costly process. The story goes that DuPont, a Canadian food and packaging company, were the first to unveil these thin plastic bags that could be used to store and sell milk in 1967. Sometimes known as plastic udders, these milk bags were favored over cartons or bottles because manufacturers could simply adjust the length of the plastic sealing points without needing to design new molds or pattern templates. Gradually, Canada's dairy industry began widely adopting these innovative plastic pouches, and the trend has stuck to this day, though mainly in areas of Canada like Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritime provinces. But bagged milk isn't just about efficiency, it's also about freshness and food waste reduction. Most bags come in sets of 3, and when you're ready to use one, you pop it into a pitcher, snip the corner, and pour. Because the bags are smaller, you only open what you need, keeping the rest sealed fresh. Milk bags can be found in other countries such as South Africa, Argentina, Uruguay, Hungary, and China, and Ukraine, but Canada's were the first. So while the rest of the world might chuckle at these plastic udders, it's actually a clever packaging solution. It just makes sense. Well, at least if you're Canadian. Canadians are widely known for their politeness and law-abiding nature. However, it seems the authorities may have taken advantage of this by maintaining some rather unusual laws. One of the most bizarre laws in Canada's criminal code made it illegal to pretend to practice witchcraft. The law was introduced in the 1950s, and in October 2018, a Toronto psychic named Samantha Stevenson was arrested for convincing a man that selling his house and giving her the proceeds was the only way to rid his home of evil spirits. This was deemed to be an act of insincere fraud and exploitation of a vulnerable individual, but interestingly, practicing legitimate witchcraft as part of the Wiccan religion or as an occult practice is entirely legal and even celebrated in certain areas. For instance, the Wood Lake Water Witches, a coven in British Columbia, gather each October to celebrate the spooky season by paddleboarding across the lake in an annual event. Despite a few cases against fraudulent witches, Canada's law prohibiting fake witchcraft became known as a zombie law. That is a law that, while still on the books, is considered outdated or redundant due to newer legal standards. In December 2018, the Canadian government repealed several of these zombie laws. Alongside the witchcraft law, other outdated provisions such as the prohibition of dueling and a ban on publishing comics depicting crime were also scrapped. So while witchcraft may be legal in Canada, bad laws certainly aren't immune to a good old-fashioned vanishing act. Abracanada! While many zombie laws in Canada are dead and buried, some bizarre bylaws still exist. For example, in Alberta, it's illegal to paint wooden ladders as paint could hide fractures, turning a climb into a dangerous mishap. But Alberta isn't the only place with puzzling paint-related laws. In Canada, a suburb of Ottawa, there's a rumor that residents are forbidden from painting their garage doors purple. Though this gained traction online, it seems to be a misunderstanding. The myth may stem from a 1973 bylaw in the areas that asked homeowners to maintain a vaguely consistent appearance, including colors. There's no record of enforcement of this bylaw, though, so in reality, Canada residents can paint their garage doors any color they want, just so long as it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb versus their neighbors' places. Canada is home to over 1 million moose, and while we've already seen that some can exhibit rather quirky behavior, a few are believed to be downright magical. Check this out. This ethereal creature was spotted crossing a remote road in central Alberta. Sightings such as this are known as being a sign of good luck in Canada, particularly among indigenous Cree culture. In Cree culture, animals are often viewed as messengers from the spiritual realm, and white moose like this one are known as spirit moose. But beyond their spiritual significance, what does science say about these rare, ghostly-looking moose? Many attribute the striking appearance to albinism, a condition where the body can't produce melanin, the pigment responsible for coloring skin, fur, and eyes. However, it's not that simple. Albinism typically results in a complete lack of pigmentation, including pink eyes. Yet close-up photos captured by the folks responsible for the clip we just saw show this moose's eyes with seemingly normal pigment. This has led some experts to suggest that the moose might actually have leucism, a genetic condition that causes partial loss of pigmentation, usually leaving the eyes unaffected. Whether luck, legend, or leucism, Canada's natural world certainly isn't afraid to stand out from the crowd. Vancouver is a city where nature and urban life collide in the most spectacular ways. But there's one spot in the skyline that takes that balance to a whole new level. Yep, I'm talking about the building with an entire tree on top. This is Eugenia Place, a 19-floor apartment complex boasting spades of natural beauty. Literally. But here's the cool part. The tree isn't just a gimmick. It's actually meant to represent the natural world that existed here long before the concrete jungle. Back in the day, towering trees like Douglas firs and great cedars stood in place of the cityscape, and the height of the building, tree included, mirrors the height of those ancient forests. But planting a 37-foot tree on top of a high-rise, that's no small feat, especially in a city with such changeable weather. So, after lifting the tree to the roof via crane, the architects installed a specially designed planter up there, complete with hooks and cables to keep the tree in place. It's like a giant flower pot with proper irrigation systems and soil to keep the tree happy and healthy, no matter what kind of weather is thrown at it. Today, the tree on Eugenia Place is more than just a pretty architectural feature. It's an iconic part of this city's identity. I mean, it's not every day you see a tree hanging out on top of a building, right? Which of these Canadian curiosities
I just don't feel like
scratching
cooking.
your head? Are there any countries you've been to with even stranger customs? I mean,
Products that lied straight to our faces.
Oh,
Yeah. We're gonna watch that.
you and me,
Oh, I forgot to get water.
work for our money. So when I find out companies lie to us to line their
Bro, the whole reason I got up was to get water and I forgot. Hold on. I drink like 5.5, 6 bottles of water a day, so gotta make sure I have my water. All right, let's go.
fat pockets with our hard-earned cash makes me want to burn down my local Walmart. We're trying our best out here, and they're milking us for every cent.
Burn down the local Walmart.
Don't
Crazy.
believe me? Well, I've rounded up some of the cheapest skimpers and outright fraudsters to convince you. It's time for these weaselly corporate scumbags to learn a lesson as we take a look at products that lied straight to our faces.
I love this channel. I watch it all the time.
Whopping lie.
Uh-oh.
Ah,
Burger King.
bonjour, madame. Bienvenue. Welcome to my restaurant. Suivez-moi. Today's special is the hammerest hamburger.
Mm.
2 succulent flame-grilled pâtés of the finest beef.
Accent's crazy.
Here's your burger. Now shut up and eat it.
What the flip?
No one would accept that kind of treatment in a nice restaurant, right? So why is it that whenever you go into your favorite fast food joint and the food comes out looking like roadkill slapped between 2 ashtrays, we don't question it? Well, some people actually do. Burger King customers filed a class action lawsuit in September 2023 against the chain for making the in-store images of the Whopper look more whopping than they are in real life. They
It's true.
allege that the Big BK has used in-store images that portray the burgers as 35% larger with twice the amount of meat than the pitiful patties they really serve. And the plaintiffs are seeking a whopping $5 million in damages. Yoinks! The Burger King's royal court protested because apparently expecting every burger to look like it does in the ads is setting unrealistic standards.
And it is.
Malish, that sounds like a you problem. They're your frickin' photos, you dummy. But His Hamburger Highness isn't the only one with their head on the proverbial chopping block. McDonald's, Wendy's, and Taco Bell were all also the targets of similar lawsuits filed in New York. The most brazen case of all, though, has to be Buffalo Wild Wings. They got sued in Chicago for allegedly serving boneless chicken wings that weren't deboned chicken wings.
What?
They're just throwing any old bit of chicken in there. In fact, the last 12 years, the number of these class action lawsuits brought against food and beverage companies has spiked a mind-blowing 375%.
Holy crap, bro.
Holy smokes.
Just cook at home.
If I were Dunkin' Donuts, I'd be watching my back. Look at the difference between the picture of their breakfast taco
Not Dunkin' Donuts in
and
the crosshair.
thing. That's disgraceful. And it's not just their tacos that are light on filling. This jelly donut is missing a pretty crucial component.
The filling.
Jack
Oh my.
who wants to sink their teeth into some dry.
What is that?
Man, getting dunked on by Dunkin' has gotta hurt. What do you think? Are you a Viva la Revolution against Big Burger?
I cook at
Or should
home.
we just get what we're given? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. American made.
Clearly, right?
Nothing I love
PB&J.
more than being an American. We got the best food, best sports. In fact, anything made in America is a surefire sign of quality. However, can you be sure that things that say made in America were actually, made in America? Excuse me? Yep. Some manipulative marketers have been tugging on the heartstrings of our national pride while lying about where their products are made. Sandpiper or Piper Gear USA makes military-themed backpacks and other goods. Boy, I love our troops and I love backpacks. Sounds perfect. Except they just wrote American-made on all their labels when their products were actually cheap imports from Mexico or China. Oof. And they're not the only ones. Mattress company Nectar Sleep falsely claimed their products were assembled in the U.S. to give themselves a home turf edge in a crowded market. All of their products are actually made in China. But the most audacious liar has gotta be...
He said two different things just now. He said assembled in America. Then he said made in China. That makes sense though. They made in China, but assembled in the US, which is two different things. So it's not technically a lie. I'm just saying.
Patriot puck. They touted themselves as the all-American alternative to imported hockey pucks. They even draped their products in the American flag to hammer it home. Except they weren't even remotely American. They were cheaply manufactured imports from, you guessed it, China. See, there ain't nothing wrong.
China makes a
with
lot
being
of stuff
proud
we
where
use.
you're from. Just don't be a dingus and fall for every sucker.
And now they're
selling
finding
cheap
ways
crap
to
with the flag on it.
sell it directly to us so we don't pay the
Preposterous
markup.
Packaging. Some companies out there are always looking for ways to make it look like you're getting more bang for your buck when they're actually giving you less. The other day I was picking up detergent from the store, but when I got home, I noticed that something about the bottle seemed a little dodgy. Sure, from the outside you'd assume this was just a standard bottle of detergent. However, when you peel away the label, the middle section is completely hollow,
What?
like a big donut. Ooh, that's sneaky. And this isn't just happening to the products you use to keep your clothes fresh, but your face fresh too. This
Yeah.
moisturizer box makes it out like you're getting a giant jar.
Yeah.
But that couldn't be further from the truth. Yep, most of the space in the box is, well, space. Man, I'm so pumped I paid $45 for a box of air.
Not only that, I bought I think it was just moisturizer from e.l.f. Bro, like 3/4 of the bottle was just space. And then there was this tiny amount of product. And I was like, I just paid all this money thinking I was getting a large bottle when I wasn't. No, it wasn't moisturizer. It was primer for my face. The e.l.f. Makeup primer. I was pissed. I was like, I'm not buying this no more. Because it's a ripoff. What are you doing? Fix it.
Still, I don't think it's the worst empty box I've ever seen. This cheese and crackers gift set looks like a great present. Until you realize you only get 2 tiny slivers of cheese. Huh? But they look like full blocks. The way I eat cheese, that's not even enough for 2 crackers. Way to accidentally make yourself look like the stingiest gift giver going. What are those? Every time I look in the mirror, I feel I've got a little pudgier around the middle. But the older I get, the harder it is to shift those pounds. Conniving shoe companies know this and make stuff up about their products to get you to buy them. Take Skechers. You might recognize them as those ugly shoes your auntie started wearing after throwing her back out. But around 2012, Skechers marketed their shape-up range of shoes by saying they could help people lose weight as well as strengthen and tone their buttocks. So if you could muscle looking like a horror show below the ankle, everything above the ankle would look slimmer and more defined. Neat. And they even got that proved by a professional chiropractor who recommended the product based on his independent studies. Alright, so what's the problem then? Well, they forgot to mention that the chiropractor was married to a Skechers marketing executive and that he was paid to conduct the study. What?
Of course.
That's not all. They even paid him to run biased tests to make the shoes look good.
What up, Scams?
There was no conclusive proof that Skechers shape-ups had any influence on weight loss at all. It was just a total lie. When it was all uncovered, Skechers got slapped with a massive $40 million fine for their deceptive and manipulative marketing strategy. Yikes. Serves them right. Now get these dusty-looking orthopedic 900s out of my face.
I got hair, bro.
Disgusting.
I got hair, bro.
Phone fabrication. I miss the good old days when my headphones plugged directly
Long
into
hair,
my
too.
iPhone. But with all
Ain't
the
shit,
changes
just taking my
Apple
hair out.
made to their flagship device, they say there just isn't space. Or is there?
What's up with you?
See, since the release of the American iPhone 14 model, Apple has been relying exclusively on digital eSIMs, which don't take up as much space. This is only the case for the US models. Anything outside the US still has the regular SIM tray. But the US models decided to fill that newfound space with a small
Seem
piece
like a
of
whole day job.
plastic.
Not really. I'm almost done.
So I've got to spend my hard-earned money on a special
Almost done.
adapter just
Going
to
quickly.
listen to music on my $1,000 phone. Meanwhile,
Chillin', thought I was
Apple
bugging. What
plugs
you
in
mean?
space with useless
Oh, because you saw me
plastic.
live on YouTube.
Ridiculous. Okay, so it's not totally
Yeah.
useless. It helps to keep the screen in place and stops the phone from getting damaged if it gets dry.
'Cause I already told
But
my
with how
Discord I wasn't
notoriously
going live on
flimsy
Twitch.
These things are. Do you think a tiny plastic buffer is going to stop my screen from getting annihilated? No chance.
So I didn't want to
This is
then
the final
go live on
straw.
Twitch because
I've had it with you,
it makes
Apple.
me a liar.
That's it. I'm gonna switch to Ant. Whoa, let's not make any rash decisions.
I get it.
Blood price. I'm a squeamish little Nelly. Anything involving needles? Ugh, and I'm out. I feel woozy already. Ugh. However, one ingenious
Watching
inventor
this
found a
Be
revolutionary
Amazed
way to
channel.
conduct
I
blood
like their
tests from
content.
the comfort of your own home
It's
without
usually
the need for any
interesting and
long
funny.
needles. It's called the Edison, and it's developed by a company called Theranos. Rather than using a full-on needle, you only need to give your finger a tiny little prick. Then the box-like bit of kit will analyze the blood, performing a test called an immunoassay, which looks for antibodies or antigens. From analyzing these tiny particles, the Edison could theoretically measure drug levels and hormone levels, and even detect early cancer markers. Wow, that sounds amazing.
My hair's
So
long,
when
bro.
does it roll out?
It doesn't look long 'cause it's
Well,
curled up.
It won't.
But it's
See,
long.
despite making all of these audacious claims about how incredible and revolutionary the
I
technology
love
was,
it.
that's all they
How's your
were.
day going, though?
Claims.
Pretty
Never
rainy.
actually
Yeah.
worked. Right. Still, by selling these falsehoods, Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes grew the company to an outrageous $10 billion valuation, even though she had absolutely nothing to sell. Damn. Indeed, she went around lying to investors for years until finally in 2015 she got caught up in her own web. And if you scam rich folk, they'll throw everything they can at you to see you punished. In 2023, Holmes was sentenced to a whopping 11 years in jail for fraud. Yikes. Now, what Holmes did was bad, but I don't really care. the people she scammed could afford it, and they could also afford to throw the book at her too. Part of me feels she's been punished more because of who she did it to, rather than what she did. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Bocce job. I know they say a good workman never blames his tools, but if you're playing high-level sports, you kinda need the best tools to achieve peak performance. Unfortunately, some companies seemingly go out of their way to ensure you don't get them. Take what happened to one group of bocce players. So you know,
Bocce ball
is
is
a
fun.
variation of bowls, or pétanque, where players take turns rolling a bocce ball towards a white ball, and the closest player wins. War. Scintillating
Play it on the
stuff.
on the
Bocce
beach in
balls
Florida.
can be made of all sorts: metal, wood,
On the
baked clay,
beach.
and even plastic. But when some bocce players accidentally cracked one of their balls, they were shocked to find this inside.
What?
Are those billiard balls? How'd they end up there? Well, if I had to guess, I'd say this time it actually isn't a malicious act. Whatever made these bocce balls probably also made billiard balls. Perhaps there was an issue with the billiard balls, and to save on money, they just stuffed them inside the bocce balls. Still, it got me thinking, can you trust any balls? I've never cracked open a baseball or a cricket ball to see what's inside. How do I know they're not full of chip bags and Sharpies? Trust nobody. Automobile atrocity. I love driving my car just as much as the next person. However, we all need to come to terms with the fact driving around all the time isn't good for the environment. But what if I told you that the folks over at Volkswagen had cleverly engineered a way to lower the harmful fuel emissions from your car? Would you believe me? No? Well, you shouldn't. Because they're responsible for one of the most notorious business fraud cases in recent years. Basically, all cars need to undergo emission tests to make sure they don't produce more emissions than the lawful limit. With this in mind, Volkswagen installed illegal software on more than 500,000 cars in the
No way.
US and over 10.5 million more worldwide. This software helped their diesel cars deceptively pass emissions tests by detecting specific inputs like steering and throttle use and switching over to a special test mode that was compliant with emissions regulations. But under normal driving conditions, the car switched back into its standard mode, increasing mileage, power, and, ultimately, fuel consumption. In this mode, these cars were emitting huge levels of nitrogen oxide, which is heavily linked to lung cancer. I'm talking a whopping 40 times higher than federal limits.
Wow.
Sheesh. So while customers were happy their cars were getting higher miles per gallon, they were unknowingly releasing toxic gases into their communities. Holy smokes. In response, Volkswagen was slapped with a litany of lawsuits that have cost them more than a staggering
Haven't heard that word in a while.
$1
Litany.
in legal fees alone.
Good word.
Jeepers. That's some guap. Still, serves them right. Volkswagen jeopardized the health of the
How long am I gonna be on?
and
Till I'm done with my hair.
customers for the sake of profits.
Maybe
I
another
feel
couple
no
hours.
pity. Tidy up trickery. I can't concentrate if my
Because I want to
desk is
play the
messy.
new season of
I'm a busy little boy with
Fortnite.
video scripts coming out of my wazoo. I got
Have you
fewer
tried it yet?
crayons than your average Joe, and I need
Superman.
somewhere to keep them all. So when I saw this spacious station,
New weapons, new places on the map.
Cop it. Just look at this thing. It's stunning. There's room for all of my stuff. My phone, and even a special drawer for all my rated R videos too hot for the tube. Perfect. Only when I ordered it, all was not as it seemed. Whoever took the promo pics of this desk tidy was a crafty little sausage with some of the items. That's not a real phone. This is. Huh? That's right, they've played with perspective and editing to make this desk tidy look much bigger than it actually is. But you'd only really notice if you looked at it closely. If you compare the size of the phone to some of the other items in the shot, it starts to pick itself apart. Who has giant pens or giant glue sticks? It seems as though my hunt for the perfect organization station goes on. I don't believe it. Look, I know some vegans can be preachy and annoying, but most are good people simply trying to do what they think is right. Sadly for vegans in the UK, that might not be so easy. That's because a 2023 study found that roughly a third of all products in UK grocery stores marked as vegan aren't vegan at all.
That sucks.
Mm-hmm. See, because no legal definition for the word vegan exists, companies have been getting away with sneaking milk, eggs, or other animal-derived products into their vegan marketed products. By marketing these goods as plant-based, it doesn't matter what's in them. Take our favorite royal establishment, Burger King. Wow, again, heavy is the head that wears the hollow crown. When they introduced the Rebel Whopper, a plant-based alternative to their flagship burger, they made the patty plant-based, sure. However, the mayonnaise they added to the burger was made from eggs, and they cooked the patty on the same grill as the meat one. See, this is my problem. I love gobbling glizzies as much as the next guy, but not everybody does. I think any company that pretends to care about the things you care about just so they can take your money doesn't deserve your custom. False start. Anyone who's had a baby will know what a terrifying experience it is. And afterwards, every young parent you know suddenly comes out of the woodwork to tell you you're doing something wrong. Listen, Jennifer, your kids eat glue. Keep your advice to yourself.
Your kids eat glue is diabolical.
Manufacturer Gerber found a way to get through to new parents by advertising their product as allergy resistant. Gerber claimed that infants with a history of family allergies who drink Gerber Good Start had a reduced risk of developing those same allergies. Whoa, that's awesome. Yeah, except it's not even remotely true. When Gerber was asked to substantiate their claims about this miraculous generational healing powder, they couldn't muster up a single shred of evidence. At best, they started babbling on about how it was partially made with hydrolyzed whey proteins, and that was their secret formula to sneezeless success. But that was all goo-goo gaga baby talk too. There's no proof that anything Gerber said has any relation to whether your kid gets sick or not. And if you're a new parent, I know it's scary, but try and panic less. My mom dropped me on my head a bunch of times. I turned out to be a successful, albeit totally bodiless, YouTube personality.
He's stupid.
Sweetest smile. Nowadays, it feels like it's more and more common to see food-shaped like faces. It's got to be one of the oldest tricks in the book. If you make a little treat look cute and inviting, people are going to want to try it. Just make sure whatever it is you're making, matches the packaging. Candy manufacturer Ricolino apparently didn't get the memo. They sell emoji lollipops, and I've got to hand it to them. The packaging sure is eye-catching. Only upon opening it and expecting to see this beautiful beaming face, excited kids instead found one very stern senor. What's wrong, amigo? You don't know what it's like to be me. Every day I wake in darkness, twisted and deformed by this factory we call life. All of my peers silently suffer the same cruel fate. Sick of being promised love but being fixed in this permanent state of despair. Or worse, fear. This is never what I dreamt of. I wanted to smell flowers. I wanted to teach orphans to read classic literature. Instead, I'm trapped here in this plastic prison you call packaging, waiting for the day I see daylight. And when I finally do, I know all I'll really see is disappointment. Whoa, when the anime villain origin story is up with that guy. Honestly, Ricolino, sort it out. Eating one of these would seriously bum me out.
You're on here
Honest
for 4 hours.
drive-through.
For hours and hours.
Welcome to Honest Drive-Thru, where we serve all your fast food favorites with some extra honesty sprinkled in for free. What can I get for you today?
Hours and hours.
Starbucks pumpkin spice latte. Gotcha. Oh, just so you know, back in 2015, it came out that there's not a single speck of pumpkin in the pumpkin spice latte. It's also pumped full of a chemical called caramel color class 4, which has possible links to cancer. Sure, the recipe's since been changed, but would you trust anything Starbucks ever sell again? Okay, you have a terrific day now. Welcome to Honest Drive-Thru. The things you like to eat with honesty for free. How can I be of service to you today? Okay, one Chipotle barbacoa beef bowl with extra meat coming right up. Hey, did you know that in 2015 Chipotle announced that all their meat and dairy was free of genetic modifications? That's right. Supposedly no one has been tampering with the food you eat. Well, they forgot to mention that their meat and dairy still came from animals fed with genetically modified ingredients, meaning they still get into their system. Right. Their attorneys argued that no reasonable customer would expect their claims to be so strictly applied. Great point. I mean, come on. Why would a customer be annoyed for ordering something from a menu and then not getting what they asked or paid for? Beats me. Anyway, here's your chicken tacos. Enjoy. Welcome to Honest Drive-Thru, blah, blah, blah. Everything you eat here sucks. What do you want now? Oh, Taco Bell? Wow. No, it's nothing really. Well, okay. There is this one little thing where in 2011 a lawsuit filed against Big Bell claimed that their beef was only 35% beef and therefore couldn't legally be called beef. So Taco Bell sank millions into this lawsuit to prove that it actually was 88% beef. Wait, 88%? What the heck is the other 12%? Not my problem. My shift's over. Bye-bye now.
That's
I'm
crazy.
just kidding. The beef gets patted out with filler material like soy protein and wheat, and this list of yummy chemicals you see on screen now. Silicon dioxide.
That's crazy.
And don't even get me started on autolyzed yeast extract. Anyways, if you've still got a hankering for 100% pure grass-fed
Make it at home.
filler entertainment, then drop a like and subscribe on our YouTube channel.
I make tacos here all the
Monthly
time.
Videos packed to the brim with the beefiest facts on the block. Tastes like success. Now let's get back to the video. Vitamin D seeds. I want to live the longest, healthiest life I can. So I take all kinds of vitamins every morning to keep me at my fighting best. But can we really trust that the companies selling these vitamins are being honest about their supposed benefits? Perhaps not if that company is Bayer. Before 2009, Bayer marketed their one-a-day multivitamins with the outlandish claim that the pills protected men from prostate cancer, the most diagnosed cancer for men. Over 750,000 people bought Bayer pills believing the claim. Only it was a big old lie, which they were sued for in 2009. Probably just a mistake though, right? Bayer surely wouldn't be caught lying to their customers again, only that's exactly what they did. They were caught lying again over their one-a-day weight smart drugs. According to Bayer, their product increases your metabolism, prevents weight gain, and promotes weight maintenance. But again, it was all nonsense. The pills did none of that stuff. If you want to take multivitamins for your health, then go ahead. But I'd suggest you buy your meds from someone else. Unfulfilling. One of my worst traits is I'm unbearable when I'm hangry. If I don't get a little Sammy, I'm a terror. The
Yeah, me
problem
too.
is I've learned you can't always trust what you pick up at the store. Often companies will make their sandwiches look chock full in the packaging, but as soon as that packaging's removed, you get, well, this. Smoked salmon and crushing disappointment. Sheesh. I know we're overfishing in the oceans, but I didn't know it was this bad. Still, fish for lunch won't make you the most popular person in the office. Maybe stick to something less environmentally hazardous like ham and cheese. Or in this case, barely ham and not quite cheese. Come on, where's the filling? Let's face it, American cheese isn't cheese, and the ham looks like piggy toenail clippings. It's fine. Maybe this little bush was all I needed to eat a little healthier. Would normally go for a garbanzo bean salad, but due to unforeseen current circumstances, oh, for the love of... That's it. I'm getting takeout. Watch me sink my sadness into this delicious-looking burger. What in the name of all things holy is that? Good job that tomato is there, because otherwise there's not a speck of moisture on that thing. I've eaten sand less dry. Well, looks like I'm carb loading today. Hoover holidays. Yikes, I need a break. Nothing beats that vacation feeling, and that's why it became the backbone of a lucrative offer in the 1990s by vacuum cleaner company Hoover. In a bid to boost sales, they offered 2 complimentary round-trip tickets to the U.S. worth about £600. That's over $1,300 in today's money. All customers had to do to qualify was spend £100 on Hoover products. Nice. However, the Hoover Holidays promotion didn't exactly pan out how the company had hoped. Hordes of consumers rushed out and purchased the cheapest Hoover products they could to qualify for the £100 threshold. But the application process to receive your tickets was so
Oh my
wildly
gosh.
complicated that it was
I keep
clear
hitting my
Hoover
mic.
was doing everything they could to stop
It's
customers
in the
actually
way.
getting their prizes. First, you had to mail your product receipts along with a lengthy application form within 14 days of making a purchase. Then Hoover sent another long-winded form which also had to be completed within 14 days. Only then would Hoover send a voucher giving customers 30 days to select departure airports, dates, and destinations. However, Hoover had the right to refuse the specific combos selected by customers and make them choose again and again and again. You see where this is going, right? To make matters worse, in all of the commotion, travel company JSI, who were responsible for booking the flights, folded. So Hoover doubled down and made the process even harder before eventually rug pulling the entire deal on people who had already bought products. Now all those customers who'd purchased hundreds of pounds worth of goods had both lost their return receipts and didn't receive what they were promised. Damn. The resulting lawsuits cost Hoover millions of dollars in owed tickets, making them lose their majority market share in the UK. They never gained it back either. Yikes.
That
Let that
sucks.
be a lesson to you all. Never take your customers for granted.
Exactly.
Unsustainable statement. Recently, I've been trying to do my bit to save the planet. I take public transport and grow my own veg, and I've stopped pouring hazardous chemicals into public water systems. Hey, it's more than we can say for some people. The other day, I tried out a new moisturizer that comes in a fancy paper bottle. I know what you're thinking. Paper liquid? Surely that's going to disintegrate before you even get it home. Nuh-uh. Some creative genius at the company has found an incredible solution to all your wet paper woes. They've stuck a plastic bottle beneath the paper label. Wait, so this is just a plastic bottle with a thick paper label over it to make you think the product is better for the planet than it actually is?
That's
That's
crazy.
pretty scummy. Especially as it says, "I'm paper bottle" on the darn label. After catching heat online, the manufacturer came forward and said that the term paper bottle was to explain the role of the paper labels surrounding the bottle. Oh, my bad. Let me guess, it also totally slipped by every single member of your marketing and product development team that this could be misleading? Shut up, you absolute tools. Fashion
Who does that?
forward. This might surprise you, but I lift clothes. Huh, please, this face you see is an elaborate costume. I can never reveal the horrors I keep beneath. Still, I do like to get dressed up, hit the town, and schmooze the ladies. Recently, I saw this fabulous floral shirt online and thought, wait, who do I know who's got two thumbs and would look fantastic in a nice little button-down like that? This guy. No, not that actual guy. Me. So I bought it and waited, and every day I saw my beloved postman come and go. Minutes became hours. Hours became days, and days became the expected delivery date. Honestly, I'm so impatient. However, when my sartorial masterpiece finally arrived, it wasn't quite what I was expecting. Take a look yourself and see if you can tell what's wrong. You've
Yikes.
gotta be kidding. They've printed the picture of the shirt onto another shirt. How could you be so stupid? Who would wear this? I got an idea. I'll give you a clue. He's got two thumbs. That's right. This guy. No, not me. I mean, this actual guy. Look. Looking good, buddy. What a doofus. Number one dad. The older I get, the more I appreciate my pops. No matter what, he's always there at the end of the phone. And without fail, he gets to my house in 45 minutes or less. Love you, Papa John. Wait, you thought I meant my actual dad? Please, that bum's about as much use as a limp breadstick. Which is actually something my deadbeat dad and the world's best dad have in common. I mean, come on, Papa Jays. What's going on with these? Explain yourself.
What?
You make them out to be these beautiful, golden, delicious, freshly baked touches of heaven. And then you're going to pull up to my yard with a box of witch's toenails. Yuck. I know they're called bread
Rich's
sticks,
toenails
but
go
if I
crazy.
gave these to 3 little pigs, they'd try and build a literal house out of them. Though they're not the worst pizzeria delivered disappointment I've found, oh no. That award undoubtedly goes to this monstrosity from Pizza Express.
Wow.
Yuck. The ad looks great, but the pizza IRL looks vitamin deficient. Deep dish? More like a deep sense of disappointment. I don't think this thing has been in the same room as an oven. If I was Chicago, I'd be lawyering up immediately. Horsing around. When it comes to a little cheat meal, I have a hard time saying nay. However, in 2013, European citizens found themselves saying nay for a completely different reason. A huge scandal exposed mass corruption across the meat supply industry when undeclared horse meat was found in a load of European food products. Huh? Initially, trace amounts of horse DNA was found in frozen burgers and lasagna. This prompted further investigations, which shockingly revealed as much as 100% of the meat in certain products was horse meat masquerading as beef.
Wow.
Jeez. And guess which maniacal monarch got caught horsing around with their meat supply? That's right, Burger King.
No way.
Their suppliers were mixing horse meat with beef, and small amounts were found in Burger King patties all throughout Europe.
No
now,
way.
health-wise, there's nothing quote-unquote wrong with eating horse. You're not going to get sick from a bowl of Twilight Sparkle tagliatelle. However, it raised huge questions about traceability along the food chain. If horse meat had snuck into the production line, who's to say that other more harmful things couldn't follow suit? And that's exactly what happened. A lot of beef products were found to also contain mislabeled pork. You might eat pork and think that's not a problem. However, many religious communities don't on the grounds of their beliefs. It's a pretty major no-no, and a lack of due diligence by consumer-facing stores meant that people were unknowingly committing sins that they weren't consenting to. Yikes. It's virtually impossible to know how many people unwittingly ate horse meat, and the slew of arrests of meat supplier CEOs will never make up for the trust they've broken with their customers. What a load of horse meat. Insight. It's hard to watch American TV nowadays without seeing some ad for pills or medications. Seriously, pharmacores are throwing out just about anything. One of those companies, Berkeley, was bringing humongous annual profits back in the 2000s, mostly off one product called Enzyte. Now, YouTube won't let me tell you what Berkeley said Enzyte did, but let's just say it was a male enhancement remedy, okay? You can fill in the blanks for yourself. At $1.50 a pill, Enzyte was much cheaper than other over-the-counter competitors, and you didn't even have to leave your couch to buy it. One quick call would have it delivered straight to your door. But that's where the problem started. See, Enzyte ran an introductory promotion where your first pack of pills came free providing you paid the postage. So you could try it out for a few bucks with no risk. Except it wasn't a few bucks. Once Berkeley had your credit card information, they'd continuously enroll customers into monthly subscriptions without their permission. When people would call up to complain, Berkeley would apologize, then charge them again the next month. The average customer got scammed out of about $100, which is bad, sure, but no one was going hell for broke. But Berkeley founder Steve Warshak was estimated to have walked away with $100 million. Sheesh. He was found guilty of a bunch of charges, sent to jail, and forced to forfeit $500 million in assets. Youchies. Berkeley was bankrupted. It makes you think, if you had a good product, why would you scam people?
Right.
Well, that's the thing. Enzyte wasn't good. It didn't even work. See, Warshak exploited a loophole by offering Enzyte as an herbal remedy rather than an actual medication. There were no active compounds in Enzyte, meaning it wasn't subject to the same regulations as other over-the-counter medications. It's nothing more than some hocus-pocus concoction of dietary supplements with no concrete scientific backing. Sure, some people had anecdotal success using it, but that doesn't take away from the fact Warshak was selling snake oil pills as a genuine remedy. No wonder he resorted to scamming his customers, because anyone who bought it would have realized that it didn't do anything. What a doofus. We've reached the end of the video.
Crazy.
Which of those fibbing fancies riled you up the most? Make sure to leave a comment down below. And until next time, thanks for watching.
Oh, I've seen this one already. Go back.
If there's one thing we all love, it's secrets. And boy, oh boy, are your everyday items harboring some spectacular secrets right under your nose. From mystery truck wheels to the crazy truth about Apple's titanium iPhones, prepare to have your mind blown as we dive into episode 10 of Amazing Secrets Hidden in Everyday Things. Let's go.
Let's go. Okay, let's go.
Truck tricks. Have you ever seen a truck driving along with a few tires hovering above the road? You
Yeah.
might think they're just spares, and in a way they are, but not for replacing flats. You see, these wheels help distribute weight when the truck is carrying a heavy load. They're attached to special axles, called tag axles or lift axles, which truck drivers can lower when needed. For lighter loads, drivers lift these extra axles to improve maneuverability and also save money on tolls, which can be affected by the number of axles in use on a vehicle. The number of axles also determines how much weight a truck can legally carry. And because more axles in use usually means more weight in the truck and hence more wear and tear to the road, that's the reason toll fees are higher. So basically, if you want to save some cash as a truck driver, learn to drive on one wheel. Foolproof. Cereal secrets. When it comes to food products, you'd like to think there's truth in the name, but that's not always the case. Take Honey Nut Cheerios, one of the most beloved cereals of all time. Would you believe there's not a single real nut in it? That's right. Despite literally being in the name, there are absolutely no nuts. When they first hit the shelves in 1979, Honey Nut Cheerios contained ground almonds. However, in 2006, General Mills subtly changed the recipe, replacing real nuts with a natural almond flavor. But the rabbit hole goes deeper. Shockingly, this almond flavor actually comes from peach and apricot pits, which contain benzaldehyde, the chemical responsible for the slightly bitter taste of almonds. While removing nuts from a widely loved cereal might seem beneficial to nut-allergic potential customers, General Mills likely did it to cut costs rather than out of kindness or concern for those with allergies. You see, these apricot and peach pits are considered a waste product when those fruits get processed, so are much cheaper to acquire than real ground almonds. Not only that, but peaches and apricots are actually close relatives of almonds and can trigger reactions in those with more severe nut allergies. So if you're allergic to nuts, it's still unwise to try Honey Nut Cheerios, despite their nutless recipe. But General Mills aren't the only cereal deceivers out there. Remember when you were a kid and you used to try and get as many of your favorite flavor Fruit Loops out of the box as possible? Well, you might want to skip breakfast this morning because I have some seriously childhood-altering news to share with you. As we all know, Fruit Loops feature a mix of red, orange, yellow, green, purple, and sometimes blue hoops depending on where you buy them. You might have even sampled each color individually, convinced they tasted different. However, it turns out every loop tastes exactly the same regardless of color, and it's always been that way. Since their creation in 1963, every loop has been coated with the same singular tropical fruit flavor with a simple dash of food coloring for each different colored loop to fool us into thinking they each have an individually unique taste. So all that effort spent during childhood carefully fishing out your favorite colors? A complete waste of time. Curse you, Toucan Sam. I trusted you. Pump up the quiet. If you're a regular driver, you've probably noticed that many newer gas station pumps have small screens that play obnoxiously loud, annoying ads.
Wash your car every day, anytime, for one low price.
GSTV's grating cheddar news,
Hello, everyone. This is Cheddar News.
or even worse, the increasing number of presidential campaign promotions.
Partnered with Gas Station TV to celebrate my presidential campaign. For a limited time, when you order a meatball sub inside, you'll also receive a free I'm voting for Ron DeSantis and I eat at the gas station t-shirt. So if you're a true American patriot who likes to chow down on road meat, please buy my
Road
meatballs,
meat?
wear my shirt, and help me defeat the woke mind virus.
Okay, admittedly, that last one's a humorous deepfake created by TikToker Luke Strickler, but the real ads are still annoying as hell. Fortunately, there's a little known way to silence these ads once and for all and enjoy the quieter pre-ad refueling experience of yore. Here's how. Most gas pumps with these TVs have 4 buttons on each side. The second button down on the right side is the one you need. Next time you're subjected to the siren blare of a gas pump ad, press this button firmly and hey, presto, ad's muted. While this secret button is the most common way to mute a gas pump, the method may vary depending on the pump manufacturer. Another less common button to try is the bottom right button, while some touchscreen versions include menus that may contain options to adjust the volume. If you're lucky, you might even end up at a gas station where employees have labeled mute buttons themselves. The only question left is, what do the other buttons do? Let me know in the comments below if you happen to know. Measured mysteries. The Hubble measuring tape is a staple of all home improvement projects, but if you look closely, you'll notice a collection of mysterious markings beyond the inches and centimeters you've probably never paid attention to before. For one thing, you may spot an encircled Roman numeral which refers to what's known as the accuracy class of that particular measuring tape. Before rolling out to retail, some measuring tapes are subject to an accuracy test that sorts them into one of 3 classifications based on their margin of error. Class 1 tapes provide the highest level of accuracy with the lowest margin for error and are most often used in high-precision tasks like scientific research and civil engineering. And for this reason, they typically cost the most. Class 2 measuring tapes are the most commonly available with a moderate level of accuracy that makes them ideal for a variety of everyday tasks, including DIY and home improvement projects. With the highest margin for error out of the 3, Class 3 measuring tapes are most suitable for tasks that don't require ultra-precise measurements like large-scale landscaping or surveying. If your tape doesn't have a Roman numeral on it, this may mean it hasn't been tested for accuracy, which may not matter if you're not in need of highly precise measurements, like if you're measuring your height to write in your Tinder bio. Don't worry guys, I won't tell them that your 6-foot-tall measurement is off by a foot. A symbol more commonly seen on measuring tapes in the US and Canada are these ominous-looking black diamonds. Also known as truss marks, these diamonds appear at regular intervals to help construction workers achieve even placement for important structural supports like wall studs or roof truss rafters. Typically, these marks are spaced either 16 inches or 19.2 inches apart, 2 industry-approved spacing measurements commonly used to ensure a building's structural integrity. Forget girls, turns out diamonds are actually a builder's best friend. Paddle power. Ever wondered why table tennis paddles always seem to have one red side and one black side? Well, this isn't just for style. It's all specially designed to ensure fair play. Ping pong paddles are covered on each side with rubbers that cause the ball to react differently when hit. Often, the 2 different rubbers on each side of a standard paddle are for 2 types of play, offensive and defensive. So, in line with traditional play tactics, standard paddles often feature a red side designed to be best for offensive play with faster rubbers and a black side for defensive play with slower rubbers. Generally, the speed of the rubbers depends on their sponge thickness and hardness. Harder and thicker rubbers produce faster shots, and softer, thinner rubbers produce slower, more controlled shots. Historically, professional table tennis players could use different types of rubber on each side of their paddles, with both sides being the same color. This allowed players to switch rubbers mid-game, making it difficult for opponents to keep track of which side was being used and how the ball would react. It was like playing against a magician who kept changing tricks. Frustrating and unfair. The story goes that a Chinese player, Chai Zhenhua, was so good at flipping his paddle with the same colored sides that his opponents felt constantly deceived. He was a master at mixing up his shots, making it almost impossible to predict his next move. So, in 1985, the International Table Tennis Federation stepped in and mandated that on competitive paddles, one side must be red and the other black. This way, opponents could clearly see which side of the paddle was being used and better anticipate the ball's behavior, making the game fairer and more enjoyable. In 2021, the ITTF approved 4 additional colors for players to use on their paddles: blue, green, pink, and purple, available in various shades. One side of the paddle still has to be black, though, to ensure colorblind players can easily differentiate. While the contrasting color combinations are specially designed to ensure fair play, there are still ways for players to use the colors to their advantage. To get around the restrictive color rules, players will often match their rubber colors to the color of their kit so the contrast is less clear during play, allowing them to potentially confuse their opponent. Who'd have thought just so much thought went into such a seemingly small piece of sports equipment? Wasabi. If you've ever eaten sushi, chances are you've tried that spicy green paste people call wasabi. But what you probably don't know is regardless of how many times you've had sushi, in reality you've probably never tasted real wasabi at all. In fact, as much as 99% of wasabi sold in the United States is completely fake, and even in Japan itself it's reported that just 5% of wasabi consumed there is the real deal. So what gives? True Japanese wasabi, or Wasabia japonica, is extremely difficult to cultivate because their growing needs are so specific. Endemic along the humid but shady Japanese mountain stream beds, the wasabi plant requires a continual supply of clean, cool water, as well as a constant temperature ranging between 45 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. On top of that, wasabi is not a fan of crowds, and when planted en masse, the plant can easily succumb to infectious disease and pests. Because of how tricky it is to grow successfully, alongside the fact that it can take years to reach maturity, legit wasabi is extraordinarily expensive, fetching a whopping $160 per 2.2 pounds of the stuff. So what the heck are we eating? Well, that light green paste in your box of sushi is most likely a mix of European horseradish and mustard, which collectively tastes similar to wasabi, alongside a dash of food coloring. Talk about a spicy secret. Excuse me, horseradish went down the wrong hole. Pencil pushing. Along with the yellow school bus and red apple, the yellow pencil has become an iconic symbol of early education. But have you ever stopped to ask the question, why yellow? Originally, pencils were made of small rods of plumbago, a form of graphite encased in hollowed-out wooden strips. Pencils were originally painted to help mask the low quality of their wood, with only those touting the fanciest wood going unvarnished. But in 1889, an Austro-Hungarian company called Koh-i-Noor Hardtmuth unveiled a new luxury pencil named after the largest diamond of the time, the Koh-i-Noor. To market this common tool as luxurious, they painted it the bright yellow hue we recognize today. Some sources say the color yellow was chosen to represent the black and yellow Austria-Hungary flag in use at the time, while others say the color choice was more of an international statement. During the 1800s, the best graphite in the world came from China, and yellow symbolized royalty and status there too. It's thought that by painting their pencils bright yellow, Koh-i-Noor Hardtmuth were cementing their pencils association with the best in the world. And it worked. The pencil industry took note, and soon every manufacturer was opting for a yellow paint job to mimic Koh-i-Noor's marketing success. Even today, it's thought that yellow-painted pencils make up around 2/3 of pencil sales in the U.S. Now that takes the term pencil pushing to a whole new level. Freshener falsehoods. Whether you're a driver or not, chances are you're familiar with Little Tree's car air fresheners, as well as their potent scents. Little Trees come packaged in these little plastic pouches. While you might assume the sole purpose of this plastic sheath is to keep the tree's scent intact before purchase, it's actually designed to play a role during use too. If you've used one before, you'll know that once entirely out of
you
its
pull that down
packaging,
slowly.
the scent of Little Tree's air fresheners
You
can
don't just
be
open it and use it.
overwhelming to say the least, and fill your car with a headachy aroma before quickly fading away. But if you take a look at
Exactly.
the directions for use,
Read
you'll
the
see
directions.
that you're not supposed to take the trees out of their packaging at all. Well, not at first. Little trees are designed to be hung while still inside the bag and gradually exposed inch by inch, slowly releasing its scent week by week.
Exactly.
By gradually pulling the air freshener out of its bag, you can control the scent intensity and enjoy a more subtle fragrance for longer. Talk about a tremendous hack. I'll see myself out. Apple anomalies. We all have that one friend who's a die-hard Apple fan, always raving about how much better their flashy new iPhone is compared to the last one. So when the iPhone 15 was released in 2023, there were the usual claims about camera improvements and better screen graphics, but the big buzz was about how much lighter the new phone felt. One standout feature of the iPhone 15 Pro was its use of titanium around the edges instead of the stainless steel used in previous models. This change made the iPhone 15 Pro weigh 6.6 ounces, down from the iPhone 14 Pro's 7.2 ounces. Sure, a difference of just under an ounce is impressive from an engineering perspective, but it's only about 9% lighter, around the same as a AA battery. So why did everyone think the new iPhone 15 Pro felt massively lighter? The core secret to this illusion in weight lies in a little piece of physics called the moment of inertia, or angular mass. Basically, this measures how much effort it takes to twist or turn an object. If most of the weight is near the center of an object, it's easier to spin. But if the weight is on the edges, it takes more effort to move. Since the iPhone's frame is around the edge, switching the material here to a lighter material significantly reduces the effort needed to maneuver it, even if the overall weight change isn't huge. While the overall weight loss from the iPhone 14 Pro to the 15 Pro is 9%, the moment of inertia has reduced by around 15% on the longer side. So Apple's use of titanium means you'll really feel the difference when you're flipping your phone between landscape and portrait, creating the illusion the phone is a lot lighter than it actually is. But hey, whether it's a placebo effect or not, I'll take anything that makes those marathon TikTok and YouTube sessions just that little less stressful on my delicate wrists. Speaking of design secrets Apple has been hiding in plain sight, if you're a MacBook user, take a second to check out your charger. On some older models, Apple used to include these two nifty flaps that extend out to help users with neater cable management. While it's unclear exactly why Apple decided to clip their own wings like this, some theorize the feature inadvertently encouraged users to wrap their cables too tightly, causing stress and damage to the charger's performance. Or if you're like me, you spent too much time fiddling with them and they fell off. Hey, don't blame me, they're just so fun. Cup cons. If you're one of the 63% of Americans that start their day with a hot steaming cup of joe, be prepared for a shock. In the US, we churn through just around 130 billion single-use cups every year. Takeout coffee cups used to be almost
No, I drink cold
exclusively
coffee,
styrofoam
and I have
plastic, but those are
a special
hard to recycle and
mug
mostly
for it.
end up in landfills. And while the general
Is it called a
switch to
mug?
paper disposable cups over plastic in recent years seems like an obvious win, it's a little more complicated than it seems. Turns out calling paper cups paper is a little misleading. Fully paper cups have a tendency to leak, so many commercially produced paper cups are made using pulped wood chips that have been bleached and then lined with a thin polyethylene plastic layer. But here's the problem. Even that tiny bit of plastic, less than 5% of the cup, makes recycling tricky. When paper cups are recycled, the plastic inside them breaks into flakes and can clog the machinery at recycling centers or melt under the heat, which ruins the quality of the recycled paper. So while paper cups can sometimes be recycled via specialized coffee cup recycling bins, putting them in your general recycling can render the whole load unrecyclable. These days, companies are looking for better coatings to make single-use cups more environmentally friendly. One popular choice are cups made with natural renewable materials in their linings like polylactic acid, a corn-based bioplastic that can withstand the heat of a hot drink. For now, though, it seems the journey to a truly green cup of joe with widespread usage is still brewing. Strap for information. Whether you're into fashion or not, you've probably seen jackets with these little flat straps on the shoulders.
Yeah.
Maybe you even own one yourself. If you're like me, you probably thought those straps were purely decorative. But in fact, they serve an actual useful purpose. Turns out these straps can help keep your bag in place on your shoulder, saving you from constant readjustments and
smart.
protecting you from would-be thieves. While this might seem like a new trick to younger generations, these shoulder straps have always been practical. Known as epaulets, they were originally designed to keep sashes and ornamental pieces in place on army uniforms, showing off a soldier's military rank as well as the securing of satchels. So what started as a functional part of military attire has evolved into a handy internet fashion hack. Oh, how times change. Climbing Confidential. If you've ever taken on a home improvement project, you'll know how full your hands can get when you're atop your ladder struggling to juggle paintbrushes, hammers, nails, the business. But did you know there's actually a whole
The
team
business.
of secret little helpers right under your nose? Many stepladders have some assortment of holes in their tops, and they're there for your convenience. These holes are specially designed to help keep your screwdrivers, hand drills, and other tools right where you need them, as demonstrated here by TikTok user JM Gator. This means you don't have to keep climbing up and down to grab your stuff all the time during a project. Plus, it helps keep everything tidy and safe so your tools don't fall off and cause a mess or a danger to anyone below. So next time you crack out your stepladder for some home improvements, check out what handy holes you've got at your disposal. Ponytails. At first glance, this plastic pony with a beautiful blonde tail looks like any other you'd find in a child's toy collection. But once you open it up, things take a turn for the worse. That's right, this pony's tail is actually attached to the head of a decapitated doll. But how in the flying ponytail flippery did this get there? Well, the first clue is that this maimed little pony seems to have been made in China. A lot of cheap plastic products made in China recycle old merchandise to save costs, which sometimes includes using old broken toy parts. As a result, we get bizarre hybrid products like rope cores made from diapers, dice inside chess pieces, and even dice inside dice. While you might be thinking the recycling of disused products is a positive step towards sustainability, there are some ethical concerns. Without properly processing and cleaning these waste materials, these hybrid products could pose health risks, reduce product quality, and, because these inclusions are rarely declared, undermine consumer trust. Unsurprisingly, no manufacturers seem to have ever made a statement about these kinds of discoveries. So if your China-made basketball splits open revealing a soccer ball inside, and a softball inside that, and a tennis ball inside that, and a golf ball inside that, don't be too surprised. Secret sparks. We can all appreciate an invention that solves a real problem, like those long-necked, multi-purpose Bic lighters designed to reach tricky spots. However, the truth about what's inside might surprise you. Inside each multi-purpose Bic lighter, there's what looks to be a second regular-sized lighter connected to a trigger. Instead, it houses a butane tank that holds the gas needed for ignition, similar in appearance to those seen on regular lighters. In fact, it seems that this tank is a regular Bic lighter with its non-essential external parts stripped off around the top and functions exactly the same. Seeing as Bic makes all this fiery stuff anyway, seeing them cleverly reuse their common products inside their more specialized products is worthy of praise if you ask me. Put your lighters in the air. Outwitting oranges. When you think of fruit and veg, you're probably picturing the rainbow-hued produce section of your local grocery store. However, it might surprise you to find out that one of our 5-a-day's flawless coloration has less to do with nature and a little more to do with a colorful twist of nurture. Many of the oranges we see piled in perfect pyramids in the produce section are actually not orange at all, and only appear so thanks to a sly bit of tinkering that takes place before they hit the shelves. According to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, it's a common practice for distributors to artificially color the skins of oranges to make them more orange. But why? Well, in reality, oranges don't all grow into the fluorescent juice balls we know them as. Often, despite being fully ripe on the inside, orange peels are very uneven in color, ranging from the bright orange we know through to yellow and even green. You see, oranges contain chlorophyll, a green pigmented chemical which they use during photosynthesis, and the amount of chlorophyll in an orange's skin is directly related to the amount and intensity of sunlight an orange is exposed to. In particularly hot climates, they'll produce excess chlorophyll as sun protection, allowing them to redistribute sunlight's energy to avoid sun damage and dehydration, and causing the orange to become a shade of green. The green fades at different rates, again, depending on temperature and storage, so to achieve that consistent, mouth-watering fluorescent hue we're all familiar with, some are treated with artificial dye before being carted off to grocery stores. Known as Citrus Red No. 2, this food-safe dye was specifically formulated to color orange peels. After being harvested and transported to packing centers, oranges without the desired Fanta hue are dipped and sprayed, but it's only the peels that get the dye job. Think of it as a quick spray tanning session. While retailers aren't legally required to individually label artificially colored oranges in store, they are required to clearly label the bulk boxes they're packed in plain view of customers. In the U.S., not all oranges are dyed, and the Citrus Red No. 2 chemical is actually banned in California and Arizona due to suspicions it might be linked to certain forms of cancer. The chemical is mainly used in Florida, which could explain the bizarre actions of all those oh-so-strange Florida men. It's those orange chemicals. But in all seriousness, this fruit fooling, alongside the fact that apples are sometimes coated in edible wax to prolong their shelf life, does highlight how industrial food systems have subtly manipulated our expectations and perceptions on how our food should appear, and that's a bitter fruit to swallow. Thanks everyone for tuning in to 10 episodes of this series. Whoop whoop, we love making it. But hey, do you...
See what else we got. I wonder... I'm looking for movies. There should have been a tab or a button for it. Oh, I love Norbit. Norbit is so funny. Yeah, why not? Let's watch Norbit. I heard a voice from heaven. Period. Almost done, y'all. For heaven, oh. I love this movie. It's so funny.
Everyone has their path in life, and this is more or less where mine started. My name is Norbert Albert Bryce, and I was an orphan. I like to think my parents loved me very much, but just didn't have the means to properly care for me. I can see them researching all the orphanages in the area, agonizing over their choices, trying to make sure their precious little boy was raised in the perfect environment.
Clap. Another black one. Can't give these away.
He said you can't give these away.
Be a long time. Nobody ever come and say, give me the ugly black one.
Hey.
Very ugly baby. Ugly baby I ever seen.
A lot of people think that orphanages are cold and scary, but the Golden Wonton was a great place to grow up. We had everything normal children have. Pets.
Give him lips, boy.
Play with that. A big backyard and lots of kids to play with.
How is it? Yeah? He plugged it in for you? Okay.
Nobody want a bald orphan? Nobody. How you find family with no hair? Nobody want a bald nobody? What the hell is wrong with this kid here?
Mr. Wong was a very interesting man. In addition to his love for children and preparation of fine Asian cuisine, he had a real passion for old-time whaling.
He's the whale hole! You son of a...
Hmm? Yeah. Oh, it's not showing.
After Marvin
That's
Browning was
crazy.
lost downtown for a couple of weeks, the orphanage started using a buddy system. Was a very interesting man. In addition to his love for children and preparation of fine Asian
Maybe it can tell.
he had a real passion for old.
So we'll try something else.
Disney fans and haters alike, brace yourselves, because your nostalgia is about to be shaken to its
the
core. Today
chili
we're
nachos?
diving into the most disturbing Disney theories out there. From eerie character connections to the secretly sinister symbols used by characters and Disney Parks employees, get ready to make your final wish upon a star. Let's explore the twisted Disney theories that will ruin your childhood. Scarred for life. Ask any millennial about their most traumatizing movie moment, and many are sure to mention the Stampede scene from Disney's 1994 classic, The Lion King. But as fans grew up, some began to wonder, what happened to Mufasa's body? Well, we might finally have the answer, and it's not pretty. The last time we see Mufasa's body, Scar is standing beside it as Simba runs away, pursued by the hyenas. Later, after some coming-of-age shenanigans with Timon and Pumbaa, we flash back to the Pride Lands where we see Scar and an encaged Zazu. In the scene, Scar picks his teeth with bone fragments before producing a skull and holding it in his paw. Disturbingly, some eagle-eyed fans suggest this skull belongs to none other than Mufasa, and that Scar ate his dead brother and kept his bones as trophies. I mean, it certainly looks like a lion skull, but you might be thinking, later in the movie it's heavily implied the hyenas attack and eat Scar upon his defeat. So if this is in fact Mufasa's skull, you'd assume it was the work of the hyenas and not Scar himself, which is still pretty disturbing, but it may not be that simple. It's true that spotted hyenas, the species shown in The Lion King, are known scavengers and will eat just about anything. To them, an abandoned lion carcass is nothing short of an all-you-can-eat buffet, so logic follows they ate Mufasa's remains. But here's the kicker. Hyenas are known for their practice of osteophagia, that is, the act of eating bones. So if the hyenas had eaten Mufasa, it's likely there'd be nothing left of him at all. So the question remains, is it really possible that Scar is responsible? While it has been proven that lions can eat other lions, it's exceptionally rare and only happens in extreme situations. Most recorded instances of lions eating other lions happen during territorial disputes where a lion attempting to take leadership of a pride will kill and occasionally eat cubs to assert dominance. So in reality, Scar would have been more likely to chow down on Simba had he stuck around. As for the skull, while it does resemble a lion skull, it's arguably closer to a baboon skull, a creature frequently eaten by lions. All that aside, the inclusion of the skull may be more symbolic. While most Disney movies are based on fairy tales and folklore, The Lion King is loosely based on William Shakespeare's tragedy Hamlet. In one of the play's most famous scenes, the titular character holds up a human skull during one of his monologues. So it's quite possible the skull Scar pulls out is merely a reference to Hamlet's most recognizable motif. Nevertheless, I still wouldn't put it past Scar to keep his brother's skull if the opportunity presented itself. What do you say, Scar?
I'm surrounded
By idiots.
The Disney Point. If you've ever visited a Disney park, it's easy to see that everything from the rides to the snacks are meticulously designed to delight guests at every turn. But some visitors have noticed something potentially sinister about a specific gesture used by park staff. If you ask a Disney park staff member
they use
for
two
directions,
fingers.
you'll see that instead of pointing with just one finger, they always use two.
Yep.
While seemingly pretty innocuous, some have suggested this gesture has disturbing origins. You see, Walt Disney was a prolific smoker and reportedly worked through around 3 packs of cigarettes per day. This meant he was constantly gesturing with 2 fingers because a cigarette was dangling between them. In an effort to hide this habit from the kids who visited the parks, Disney began doctoring the pictures to edit the cigarettes out, meaning Walt always looked like he used this strange 2-finger point. When astute parkgoers began making the connection between the way cast members were pointing and pictures of Walt, they concluded it was meant as an homage to Disney's smoking habit. But in reality, the similarity between the two gestures is much more likely a simple coincidence. Reportedly, the real reason cast members always point with 2 fingers is to universally enhance guest experience. Disney parks welcome visitors from all over the world, and in some cultures, particularly Asian cultures, pointing with your index finger is considered extremely rude and disrespectful. So Disney cast members are instructed to point with their index and middle fingers together, providing the most polite guidance possible. While the truth behind the Disney point isn't so mysterious after all, there's another baffling hand gesture connected to the company that's been right under our noses from the beginning. Some fans have noticed various Disney characters across the decades using this peculiar hand gesture, often in place of pointing. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. It crops up.
This means
just
I
about
love you in
everywhere,
sign
from
language.
Snow White to Cinderella, Alice in
But
Wonderland,
this
Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast,
means the devil.
Hercules, and these are just the
Which is
ones we've
why
found so far.
people usually
But
associate it
what
with
does
that.
mean? When looked at side by side, it's easy to draw parallels between the gestures seen in various Disney cartoons and a real-world hand gesture known as the Sign of the Horns. Often used in rock concerts, the gesture has gained a rather sinister reputation, with claims that it symbolizes support for the devil. Is Snow White a secret rock and roller, or an acolyte of the Dark Lord
There's a
himself?
difference, though.
Well, a conspiracy that Disney is subliminally encouraging children into Satanism is sure to turn a few heads. In reality, folks may have been misinterpreting the sign's true meaning.
Right.
Originally, these devil horns come from superstition and are actually a sign used to ward off evil, not embrace it. On top of that, some people, like Tony Sirico of Sopranos fame, do simply point with a horn-like gesture, so it could just be a way of animators adding a little variety to a scene. While we can't rule out that Disney intentionally included this symbol, it's still a little uncertain just why this hand gesture appears so frequently. Can you explain this mysterious symbol? Leave your theory.
Yeah. So like I was saying, in sign language, because I studied sign language, because I was a part of a group in church who performed to Christian music using sign language called a praise dance group. And in doing so, I had to learn sign language. But this in sign language means I love you. This is different. This is the representation of the devil horns or whatever. But doesn't mean it's inherently evil, if you get my drift. But this, which is what they were doing, or this, means I love you. Just so you know.
In the comments below. Whoa, what's this? It's only our brand new fun and frantic trivia card game we've been developing for years. We've packed it full of all our most interesting facts, and whenever another player thinks you're wrong, they can cut you off with a catastrophic nuh-uh. Steal your opponent's cards and risk your own and nuh-uh. And if trivia isn't your strong suit, don't worry. All the questions in nuh-uh are multiple choice, meaning eggheads and non-eggheads alike stand a chance. Crazy game-altering powers like switcheroo, flip-flop, and piggyback add extra layers of strategy, deception, and chaos to the experience. We've toiled playtesting and tweaking nuh-uh for countless hours, and each and every game was its own fun, wacky adventure. Oh, and we've designed and printed it to perfection. Look, that's me on the box over there. So, what are you waiting for? Instead of tolerating dry conversation this Thanksgiving with your know-it-all Uncle Kev, put him in his place with a well-timed nuh-uh. This Black Friday, you can get the base game and the Science and Nature expansion pack, adding over 200 more questions for only $25. That's a whopping 25% discount for our quickest, most loyal fans over Black Friday only. Click the link in the description or on screen now to order your copy today. Nuh-uh makes an excellent gift this Thanksgiving. Our stock is limited, so order now while supplies last. Okay, now let's get back to your regularly scheduled programming. Mother Megara. In the Disneyverse, there's usually a pretty clear line between good and evil, but this next theory suggests that two characters on opposite ends of the scale may in fact be the same person. What if Mother Gothel from Tangled is actually Megara from Hercules? I know it sounds wild.
It looks similar.
Meg is a hero while Gothel is a villain, and they lived centuries apart. But Flynn explains in Tangled's introduction that Mother Gothel has lived for centuries thanks to the rejuvenating powers of the magical Sundrop Flower. Where did the Sundrop Flower come from? In Tangled, we learn the magic flower grows from a drop of sun that fell from the sky and hit Earth. But what if this story is just a muddled metaphorical myth within Rapunzel's world? What if the flower's power actually comes from the son of a god, not the sun in the sky? Think about it. The animation of the golden droplet in Tangled closely mirrors the scene of Hercules falling to Earth. Hades even calls Hercules Sunspot multiple times in the movie. Plus, remember how immortality in Hercules is depicted with a golden glow? That's strikingly similar to the Sundrop Flower and Rapunzel's glowing hair. The theory suggests that after Hercules gave up his immortal life to be with Meg, and he subsequently died a mortal death, Meg
Not her name
became
being
obsessed
Meg.
with possessing
Hello.
anything representing her lover. The flower of which the
Meg's rock.
immortality-given powers and glow may have seemed to represent Hercules, left Meg desiring ownership of it. If Mother Gothel really is Meg, this might explain how she became so twisted over time. Meg was heartbroken after being abandoned by her ex-boyfriend before meeting Hercules. Then Herc gave up his immortality for her, only to die later, leaving her devastated and abandoned once again. Over time, her cynicism towards love returned, making her self-absorbed, vain, and obsessive. If the golden flower entangled is linked to Hercules, it could be the last remnants of him, ironically keeping Meg as Gothel alive, and later flowing through Rapunzel, whose hair carries the flower's power. Perhaps the biggest piece of evidence of all is both Meg and Gothel use a certain unique phrase.
Oh, stop it, you big lug. Get out of there, you big lug, while you still can.
Coincidence? Despite all the evidence, there's one big problem. Gothel uses the Sundrop Flower to maintain a youthful appearance. If she were Meg, she should surely look pretty much identical to how we see Meg and Hercules, right? Then again, the animation styles are different, so how can we know for sure? Well, we can't. So I'll leave it up to you to decide. If the Mother Megara theory hasn't convinced you, there's another Gothel origin theory you might find a little more fruitful. If you've seen Tangled, you'll know Rapunzel's tower is covered in paintings and symbols. But did you know one of them may offer another hint to Gothel's former identity? Some say this red apple is evidence that Gothel is actually the evil queen from Snow White. Consider this, both are obsessed with making themselves appear youthful and use magic to achieve this. In Snow White, the evil queen falls off a cliff, but we never see her body. And remember where Mother Gothel found the sundrop flower?